Irish Hills, a streak of new winners continues with a chance to add another to the long list that have been known for high speeds and close racing. We're diving into the heart of this regular season. We're live on the KBueno Racing Network. We welcome you to coverage of race number 10 in the inaugural season of the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, live from the virtual Michigan International Speedway. And as always, so happy to have you join us on a Sunday night. We are live from Michigan, a 2-mile oval that'll probably leave nothing to chance and probably offer drivers no mercy where. Alongside Francisco Bacalhau in the booth, I'm Kenneth Bueno. Now, Francisco, it's been a little while. Dover, of course, was our last race. We saw a brand new sequence. KBueno Racing joins, they snag the pole, they win both stages, they get the race win. We join Michigan now, probably one of those wild card races as we step further into this regular season and start deciding those 16 that'll make the playoffs in season number 1. What do we make of this one? Probably could be another addition to what we've seen, a streak of new winners and drivers that have been able to find victory lane this year for the first time. Daytona will be pivotal. I mean, you look at some of these tracks on the schedule, and obviously this second half lends itself to very different types of racing, but we just got off Talladega from the All-Star break, then we shortened things down at Dover. Almost funny that we're opening things up again to a track that nearly handles like a super speedway in Michigan, but you're right, only a couple of more races left after tonight, about 4, Pocono, Nashville, Gateway, and then that regular season finale when we return to the World Center of Racing at Daytona. One of those tracks that will be featured twice on the schedule, something that we usually don't see apart from maybe Talladega further on in that playoff area where a lot of the drivers will be fighting for considerable points. And speaking of that cut line, we'll toss about that in a couple of moments' time. It is going to be wild to see what exactly that entails when it comes down to who can make the playoffs for that season. But we got to dive into what happened last week at the virtual Dover Motor Speedway, where it was a very wild one, to be fair, and with a lot of fun of racing on the racetrack. So here was the opening start. Ross Harlow having the outside front row, then the tag to the outside wall. That was Eric Schaefer that got into him as they were heading to turn 1. Ethan Fonseca Moreno grabbed the pole, his first career in his debut race, but Francisco early on, shades of what we would see a little bit later in stage number 2. Fantastic racing. Moreno would give up the lead later to Alex Muscarella, one of the several lead changes we would have in that race.
Ultimately win the first stage.
And that was Porter's first sign of dominance. Yellow flag came out at lap 50. He was able to get the win in very good fashion from the stage. Stage 2, though, would be a very different story. Ross Harlow would take the lead from the pit stops. He would emerge as the front runner, but he would have a ton of pressure from the rearview mirror, Francisco, from Porter to Stempien to Warren Kyle Keith. The list continues. We did not see a dull moment in stage number 2. Everyone was all over the place. That common goal of getting by Ross Harlow. And while the defensive masterclass did end up ending at some point, this was in the heart of it all where Harlow had played the defense correctly. There was Stempien back to the inside. Lawson Peel had joined the fray inside the top 5. He would charge for the lead, but just like everyone else's case, could not grab it until there was a breaking point. Jaden Porter finally put the pressure on the end of the number 16, found a way to the inside off of turn number 2, and this was one of the most pivotal passes of stage number 2, lending Jaden Porter to some of that clean air to dominate the rest of the second stage.
Yeah, he was able to get the position he wanted on the outside. A little bit of contact on their way to turn one, but by then Porter had the line that he wanted and was able to go well around the 16 and pull away in the closing laps. But I gotta say, Kenneth, that was one of the single best defensive bit of driving I've ever seen on the sim, without really involving any sort of contact. The 16 just ran the line he wanted to use the entire way through and held off everybody. And the bad luck for Steven Stempien continued right there, trying to make a green flag pit stop, just overcooked it and hit the pit barrels, had a speeding penalty on top of that, and had to keep repairing some damage to his race car. And it made it even worse when you consider the fact that about 4 laps later, a caution flag comes out for this incident right here involving Cedric Hunter and Ethan Fonseca Moreno. So just a very bad sequence for the 88 and his course of luck throughout the race. Brandon Banks jumped his way out to the front of the field, but eventually he was met with some competition from KBueno Racing's Jaden Porter in the battle for the win here with 18 laps to go, where Porter cleared him with and was able to drive away for his first career win in his debut.
It was absolute domination from there on out. Over 50 laps led for the Kentucky native of Jaden Porter, and just like that, KBueno Racing steals their first ever DTH Cup Series win in only their first try. It was a great run to the end. Brandon Banks nearly grabbed what would have been his second Dover win with this group of drivers if you count Sunoco Cup Series history back from Season 6, but it was a fantastic effort for the 91, who tries to go 2 in a row here tonight from virtual Michigan. Well,
A lot easier at Daytona, and that even applies to the ones above the cut line, like Chris Cabot, who sits at 19 ahead of Casey Knighton. You see the numbers plus are relative to Cabot, since yes, he is the last one in, but a win would push him, somebody outside push him out. So you see there that Muscarella sits a little bit further up, Kip Easley, Richard Swavely, all of them pretty close to one another. However, they can still very easily pull out of the cut line.
Yeah, any of these drivers with a bad race, you know, any given moment could take them out. We've seen some bad luck from that side of the camp, specifically from 11th down to 20th. You know, you've seen some good moments here, some poor moments on the other. Tonight in Michigan may be that turning point where they start thinking, hey, let's start locking in, let's get our place in this playoffs, and let's start moving forward. Because the last thing you want to do is put yourself in that position where you're at Daytona and you're sitting behind the cut line from the outside looking in. It's a very dangerous place to be in, so we'll see what the drivers do if they change their approach as we go into tonight's race from Michigan International Speedway. Here at Michigan, we have a 2-mile D-shaped oval on tap. This track opened back in 1968, one that is famously known to be owned by a great man named Roger Penske, one of the most pivotal motorsports names in all of history. Banking sits at around 18 degrees in the corners, 12 degrees on that main front straightaway. And just like Francisco alluded to, this speedway is known for its high-intensity action and probably going to be a race where we will not see the drivers separate from each other all too much. It is a speedway that is categorized by its high intensity and by the pack racing that we will see alongside. So Michigan, our first appearance here at a D-shaped oval. We had Auto Club earlier on this season, probably going to be similar in that sense. Well, drivers are on pit road right behind the iRacing official pace car, so it is our turn to take control and give you tonight's Droppin' the Hammah starting grid for race number 10 of this 2025 season from Brooklyn, Michigan. We're on the pole. It is for the second straight time Ethan Fonseca Moreno, car number 87, will have the front row starting spot with a 39.046. Finished inside the top 12 or so last time we were here. Actually crashed out last week at Dover, so he's going to try to rebound here tonight. Richard Swavely, fantastic qualifying effort. One of those drivers that is near that top 16 cut line. He'll be on the outside of row number 1 when we see tonight's green flag. Jaden Porter, the winner from last week at Dover, looking to become the first driver to go 2 in a row this season. He'll have the inside starting spot of row number 2 in P3. Colin Forster, the Jacksonville, Florida native, will be on his outside in position number 4. Eric Schaefer, the Phoenix winner this season, will try to get a win from Michigan tonight, starting from 5th. Kip Easley in the number 8 Drinking Bros Racing Chevrolet, going to be on the outside in position number 6. Stephen Harlow has the number 11 car inside of row number 4, P7 on the grid. Warren Kyle Keith, one of those better qualifiers of this DTH Cup Series season already. He's going to roll off from the back end of the top 8 in that position. And then back in the 9th and 10th spot, row number 5, is Brandon Banks, who had a couple of laps led at Dover last week, looking for his second win of the season. And Steven Stepien still trying to ravage out of that bad luck. He'll start from the outside of row number 5.
The 11 will go to the 48 of Alex Muscarello, looking to try and see if he can have a solid run to improve his point situation, with Richard Modric in the 71 in P12. Justin Erb will be in the 13th spot, with Cedric Hunter for Category 5 Esports in the 14th spot. Jason Anderson's in the 92, returns in the 15th position, and Justin Hendry in the 85 will be in 16th. Craig Parks in the number 17 will be in 17th, your Talladega winner there, with Timothy Stubblefield, Daytona winner, alongside him in the 18th spot. James Kunkel in the 42 will be in the 19th spot, with Jason Hastings in the 20th position. And as you'll see, the running order will continue on the bottom of your screen as we're getting ready to take the green flag here. The pace car in turn 4, getting ready to make that left-hand turn and unleash this field to the Chevrolet and the Toyota at the front of the field. Kenneth.
153 laps from the virtual Michigan International Speedway, and for the second straight week, it is Ethan Fonseca Moreno who will lead us through. Swavely on the outside, Moreno the bottom, green flag from Michigan.
And Stephen Harlow wasting no time, already making it 3 wide, already gained a couple of positions on the bottom. You see him right there. That bottom is going to be very slick on these restarts with the cold tires, but as you get longer into the run, it's probably actually worse as getting loose and all that, but you have to try and make sure you keep your car under you on the high side. You can keep the momentum wound up and make some really good passes. But that's actually a really good field spread as Swavely gets sideways off the corner. He's able to save it as they go 3 wide for second. Fonseca with a good lead.
We already saw 3 wide right as they were getting out of turn 2. Eric Schaefer was on the bottom of that, but backs out in the moment's notice. And here comes Kip Easley. They'll look to the inside. They'll fan out, make it 2 abreast, entering turn 1. And Colin Forster will look to the outside. That SpongeBob deck Toyota Camry on the top side will try to make a move. So far, no dice as we get down to it, as Moreno will continue to lead by at least a car length or 2. And for right now, things seem to be very consistent, very clean, as Forster makes the move for second. Porter will try to play a defense here on Kip Easley in that battle for third place.
And it looks like Forster's cleared over for the second spot a good bit over Jaden Porter. And now he's going to see if he can run down for the top position and do some kind of battle with Ethan Fonseca. It's a very long race here tonight from Michigan, 153 laps in total. So we'll just have to see how aggressive does he want to be this early in the race. There's still plenty of time to go, especially in this opening stage. So we'll see how he decides to plan this, especially with a teammate of Ethan's behind Forrester right now in Jaden Porter. You look a little bit further back there, Steven Stempien running in the 7th spot with Swavely, who was up in 2nd after his moment in at the front of the field off of turn 4, finds himself down in the 8th position. Eric Schaefer and Brandon Banks just behind him. You see that little bit of a second group kind of about half a second off, and there's a crash. Richard Modric around. It looks like there's another car involved. I'm not quite sure who it is, but the 71 with some big damage on the side of his race car looks to try and get away from it.
And it's Brad Fulham, the secondary car in it, parked on the banking. Entering the corner, he's going to pick things back up, but that Toyota Camry is toast. Car is completely beat up on all sides. We'll try to get a replay and see exactly how this all unfolded between the 19 and the 71. And I believe it started up the road with Modric as he was going up there. And he was on the outside. That's Justin Hendry looking to the inside. Lawson Peel, who rolled off 24th tonight, was looking on the bottom. That's outside 3 abreast, something that you'll see commonly here at Michigan, particularly out of these corners when the draft is so strong on these straightaways. And Jason Anderson was right in front. There was the contact. James Kunkel had been right into the back end of the 71, and hard he goes into Brad Fulham up the racetrack, and there was nowhere for Fulham to go as Modric had made the bit of side-by-side action miss, and then all of a sudden the spin happens as he flanks down, and I believe either Kunkel got up or Modric got a little low. I think Kunkel just moved up a little too high. Modric was not expecting it, goes for the slide, and as he ricochets up the track, Brad Fulham is just trying to get by on the gas pedal, and there was nothing that either of them could do, so the yellow flag waves for the first time tonight. Moreno in the race lead.
That was a good opening run just to kind of see how the field would react to the racetrack and the conditions out there. We have triple-digit track temperatures. Currently, as it stands right now, it's 110, and you could expect that to cool off as the race progresses. It is 4 o'clock in sim, and with these 153 laps, it is just a handful of laps away from being the real-life race distance. So this thing could probably find itself in a sunset-like condition towards the final laps of this race, depending how many yellows we have in this one. And that could definitely change how the track is driven, the amount of grip in it, the amount of rubber that gets put down. It'll be a lot more compared to some of the previous races we've seen this season. And that, just to kind of talk about a couple races ahead, just the next one at Pocono, we have 150 there next week, Kenneth. That is 10 laps away from a full race cup distance at the Pocono Raceway. So that one, quite longer than this one.
Yeah, it's going to be really long. And, you know, you think of the different types of lengths we have in this season, and some of them are a bit longer than others, but for the most part, we've gone around, you know, an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours of racing, and on the broadcast, about 2.5 hours. But yeah, Pocono is going to be an endurance race for sure. It's going to get everybody in it, but not to say that these drivers don't have experience racing like this, because in the Sunoco Cup Series, they had to deal with several events, or almost every single event, going 3.5, 4 hours for a full cup length of distance. So, you know, these guys have taken on the challenge before, and they've been able to do so in prior seasons of that series. They could probably do so in the translation to tonight's event. Let's get into our SK Sim Racing race analysis while we had the chance to under our first yellow flag of the night. This is how this race will portray 153 laps, scheduled for initially 150, but because this race is in honor of a great friend of Steven Stepien for many years, Dave Bush, who passed away recently and has been a part of our Lap 53 tribute for every single race in this inaugural Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season, they decided to extend this race to be that magic number, 153. We go 50 laps for both of the stages, 53 for stage number 3. So while Francisco, we've seen often in many other races this season where, you know, the third stage is usually that longest by 10 to 15 or maybe even 20 more laps to open up strategy, you're going to go mano-a-mano 50, 50, and 53 the entire way.
That's really close on fuel for every single stage. I mean, stage 2, you could probably get away with not having to pit under green. If it goes green flag the whole way, or even under caution, you probably won't require it just from the caution lap feeding in to the stage counter itself. But it's really close, just in general, just how close it's going to be on the fuel side of everything. So interesting that that's what the admins decided to go with for the stage length of tonight's race. But that's something to keep in mind of, just if they do go green or if they do have long runs in it, that it's going to be very tight. And in stage 1 and 3 in particular, that's going to be something to keep an eye of.
So we will restart everything here. Lap number 8 of 153. Moreno in the race lead. Porter going to be on the outside. Those pair of BBR Chevrolets, they have been fast ever since they started the season back at Dover. Moreno, of course, the pole sitter, and things didn't really turn out the way that the Californian really wanted it to go from that front row starting spot. Had a really strong car, lost the lead, and then by the midway portion of this race, he had been floating around the top 15, maybe top 11, and then got involved in that big crash entering turn 1 involving James Kunkel, and he made a bit of Cedric Hunter, who was the face of that accident at the time. Moreno trying to gain back momentum, and he will have control of the lead here on lap number 8 as Porter will try and help him from the outside lane. Green flag waves, first restart of the night from Michigan International Speedway, and a solid jump by the two teammates. They will single file out in line. Porter goes right behind the back bumper of his teammate to turn 1. Kip Easley will make the move on the inside of Harlow for P3, while Warren Kyle Keith tries to look from the background, and Steven Stepien cracks out into the top 6.
Oh, and Easley gets sideways off of turn 2, is able to hang on to that one. He'll lose a couple of positions there to Warren Kyle Keith and Steven Stepien. Here comes Eric Schaefer and Richard Swavely with a big run, but Schaefer is going to let his teammate have an opportunity to not continue to bleed positions, and Lawson Peel finds himself now in the top 10 for the first time tonight.
Not surprising that we've seen Lawson Peel cut through the field this early, but obviously lap number 8's first caution of the race. You probably expected him to be a little further out in the field and out of reach from the rest of this top 10, but here he is nonetheless. He's got his teammates with him, Eric Schaefer and Brendan Banks. And, you know, we've talked to them about how they've been able to spread the wealth in this series, particularly getting Craig Parks to win, you know, Banks getting the W, Schaefer and Peel, all of them being able to win races here in 2025. They've enjoyed the success from the cohesive side of things, and here they are just trying to work their way to the rest of this top 10. But obviously lots of firepower on the inside. That's Colin Forster making the move to the bottom. He had fallen through the top 5 considerably, was up in the top 3 at one point in this race. How about 3 wide further back? Parker Bland splitting the middle. Stubblefield on the inside, Anderson up top.
And 3 wide is very comfortable here. You don't have to worry about anybody having room for 3 wide, even in these corners. You can even go 4 wide and not have an issue here. The biggest problem would be the spotter not being able to call 4 wide on your headsets. It looks like the 32 once again had a moment off the corner and is going to lose some more positions further back down the racetrack. But Kenneth, I'm hoping one day iRacing really does update the spotter pack to include 4 wide in the spotter calls, because at a track like Michigan and even at Talladega, that is incredibly useful to have.
Yeah, it is. And I think here, Auto Club, Talladega, those probably are those 3 particular racetracks on the oval side of things that you need 4 wide. Daytona, you can go 4 wide, but the track doesn't really lend itself to opening up that much of lanes to create 4 wide racing. But for sure here in Michigan, one of those things that you always got to keep in mind, especially off of that final corner where we've seen drivers make big time moves before. Here comes Schaefer to the inside. That's for 7th place on Colin Forrester. And those two are going to get real close. How about the 3 abreast? As Lawson Peel goes to the inside, and perhaps some help right behind of the 85 car, Justin Hendry, who had a shot to win at Daytona to kick off the season out of turn 4. And him and another driver had crashed into the outside wall before allowing Timothy Stubblefield to break free for the race win. So 12 laps in, Moreno still the race leader. Porter back by at least 2 car lengths. And not surprising that we see these two extend their invitation up front. And I think from what we've talked about, the drivers who have, you know, competed in Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series action and also in 4 wide action, they've noted the success of Droppin' the Hammah, and they have actually enjoyed having these 2 drivers join for 2025. They are expecting Stephen Maggio to be the next teammate to join. So far, he hasn't been able to join the field yet, but KBueno Racing has been strong as of late. How about nearly 3 wide again for spots in the top 15?
And you know, Kenneth, for those that do watch the 4 wide racing series, they can tune in on Wednesday night for the playoff opener from the sister racetrack, the Auto Club Speedway. You and I had a great conversation at Cheddar's a couple weeks ago where we talked about the 4 wide playoffs and KBueno Racing drivers. And if you want to see the clip of us two talking about those topics, then you can check on over in that little bit of a moment in time in the 4 wide racing broadcast on Wednesday night.
And that'll be a lot of fun. We had a lot of conversations between us, conversations with all of the playoff drivers. So when things kick off at Auto Club on Wednesday night, that should be a ton of fun when, you know, you get to hear the personalities of the drivers, get their thoughts on what this playoff structure is going to bring their fate in this rest of the season. Is here's 2x2. There is the Drinkin' Bros Racing trio. Not surprising that we're seeing them here. Easley, who had fallen back quite a bit under fire from Warren Kyle Keith, and then Eric Schaefer, Lawson Peel in that side-by-side battle for what is position number 8 right now. They've got a good look at another side-by-side battle in the rearview mirror. How about nearly 3 wide? Brandon Banks trying to fend through the middle. Jason Anderson, first time we see that 92 Chevrolet for the first time in a while, using the apron in 3 and 4. Not going to succeed. There comes Cedric Hunter to the outside. Still 3 abreast at the top 13.
And you know, Kenneth, for a couple laps, I saw somebody down there on that apron, and I thought, okay, there's something going on. But no, that's just the line that Jason Anderson has been using in 3 and 4, and we saw this at Auto Club in real life a couple of years ago, almost 10 years ago. Wow, that's not what I was expecting to say there, but we saw it really become popular with Kurt Busch and a couple other drivers. They were diving it into the apron in turns 3 and 4, and it had a lot of grip, making passes down there. We'll see if he tries to do it this time to get around Banks. No, he won't. But he's been using that apron, and I've never seen that at Michigan. At Auto Club plenty of times, so that's interesting to see 990T use it, and we'll see if it becomes an option later in the race.
So it's Moreno, Porter, then the battle for third. And now a spinner. There's Justin Hendry in the background as he went sideways in front of the field. Yellow flag does not wave. We are going to stay green. But there's a bit of the damage on the right front to the 85 car. Went for the spill slightly, locked it up, and saved the race car right before things got dire. We'll take a look at the replay as that all unfolded under green. It was him and Eric Schaefer. They got a piece of the contact together. And they were nearly making 3 wide on Warren Kyle Keith, the fellow Bass Pro Shops car right in front of them. And yeah, just minor contact between those two, and Hendry does a great job at locking it up. It's nearly a tap to the outside wall, but Hendry, for the most part, is able to keep his Toyota planted. And for the moment, we are going to continue racing here from Michigan without a doubt. That was close.
Yeah, that's a little bit close for comfort, but I think fortunately for everybody, generally speaking, they're happy not to see that yellow flag to continue to get some green flag laps under them. Unfortunately for Justin Hendry, kind of came down a little bit and gets in front of Eric Schaefer, and good save by him to not get into other race cars, but he's going to sit right now well behind most of this field. He's down in the 26th position, and there's another group of cars around him, generally speaking, that have kind of lost touch with the main general group of drivers that are in the top 21. He's right now in front of Casey Knighton and behind Kevin Roy, a couple of cut line drivers.
And we know to Chris Cabot right on the edge of that cut line through the top 16. And of course, all of these guys a part of these cut line fights as we watch closer and closer to the end of this regular season. And there's a look at the front of the field. Still single file. Forster has clawed his way back to third. So although a quick drop off for the Jacksonville, Florida native, he has been able to slowly get back into things. And he'll work to the inside of Porter this time by. Still no dice at getting by those duo KBueno Racing Chevrolets. For the moment, the encore continues. And Porter will hold on to second. Forster back in third. Stephen Harlow back in fourth. And Kip easily rounding out the top 5. Look at the separation, though, from this first pack to the second. We haven't really seen that as much throughout the opening stretch of this race, but as we get closer to lap number 50 and that end marker for stage number 1, that's what we're going to see a little by little, Francisco. This is one of those tracks that, sure, it's fast enough, it's wide enough to go nearly full throttle across this 2-mile oval, and it will crunch everybody up together, but it is one, just like Auto Club, that lends itself to a bunch of tire strategy and tire conservation. You got to be smart with your Goodyear Eagles underneath the race car if you do want to be a contender at the end of this race. So by the back end of things, either there was a reaction to Hendry's slight spin or what, but there's a big gap going all the way back to where Craig Parks, Chris Progard, Timothy Stubblefield and company are through the top 20.
I just saw Lawson Field do exactly what we were talking about a couple laps ago, using the apron to try and make a pass. We'll see if we can show it on the right side of the screen here. He went for the dive to make the pass on Steven Stempien, and look what he does. He doesn't fully go down there, but he straddles it, goes down to 4th gear, and it actually worked out better than I thought it would for straddling the apron like that. Obviously, he didn't end up making the positions in the end because the draft on the outside worked, but if he had any kind of help there on the bottom, he could definitely gain a spot or two doing that.
So as we stay green here at Michigan International Speedway, wanted to touch on a very special message on the number 20 machine of Justin Erb. Recently, his grandfather passed away, and he had asked if we could do a tribute for him tonight here at Michigan. So on lap number 21, we get a silent 21-gun salute for Justin Erb's grandfather, a Korean veteran, and earned himself a Purple Heart. So our thoughts and prayers with the family of Erb as he carries his grandfather's passion and his legacy all around his number 20 Chevrolet. once again, our thoughts and prayers with the Erb family, and we hope that Justin is taking care of himself at this time, and we hope that everything's all right. And of course, our thoughts still with that family, as he's got the beautiful paint scheme tonight, and that number 20 has the message on the rear end of his Chevrolet Camaro as the battle for the lead kicks on. Steven Stepien and Ethan Fonseca Moreno have finally found their groove to battle each other. Stepien has been slowly working his way through the top 5, and to the cross of the line, lap 24, Stepien looks to the inside for the lead.
He peeks to the bottom and was going to try to use the bottom to clear, and he's clear for now. We'll see as he slides up if the 87 is able to mount a charge. And we saw this last week, probably took a little bit longer this time around. Fonseca led the first handful of laps before eventually getting past. And this time it is Steven Stepien that finds the top position much earlier than it took for him at Dover. And you see now Porter actually has fallen back quite a bit. He is down now to 6th, getting challenged by Kip Easley for that position. Lawson Peel finds himself battling Forster now for the 3rd position.
And Forster once again dropped off, so the quick surge to the front of the field has led Forster with this mission here to fend off the rest of this top 5. He's got Peel, Harlow, and even a bit of Jaden Porter, who fell right behind. And as soon as Porter got the dirty air, he has been stuck in the midst of this group, nearly got into the back end of Peel's machine going into 1 and 2. He'll have a little bit of help here from Kip Easley, bit of a wiggle down this back straightaway. But our first proper lead change occurs 25 laps in and halfway through stage number 1. What a drive from Steven Stepien to work his way into P4, or into the top spot out of turn 4. Wow.
Top position.
It's been
it
terrible.
has not been our night so far.
It's been rough.
And I just actually, actually, Kenneth, I just looked out our window. If you look out your window right now, that we have a red moon.
Oh, we do. Well, I can't really see it from where I'm sitting right now, but hopefully it's a good view for everyone else in Florida. Maybe anyone else? I don't know.
Maybe. I got the news earlier in the week that we were going to have a red or pink moon this weekend, and actually I have a really great view of it here on my right side. So if that's a sign for what's to come for the action in this race, I can't wait to see what's left to go in this race.
Well, right now it just feels like the Mercury's in Gatorade or something for me. I don't know what's going on right now.
Something like that.
There's Steven Stepien's number 88 Chevrolet right at the front of this field. Moreno, Forster, Peel, and Porter, your current top 5. Things have separated quite a bit. There's Harlow to the inside of Jaden Porter. That short-lived action goes on through turn number 1. And if you look closely at this number 88 Chevrolet, you'll realize, well, from a first glance, it's a different scheme to what we've used to seeing over the course of the season. We usually find out that it's a Droppin the Hammah black and green paint scheme that he bears week in and week out, or even some of these Chevrolet accessory paint schemes that he's worn a couple of times in this 2025 season. But he has a Makita number 88 Chevrolet here tonight, with a very special sticker on the sides of the race car. It's a red circle on either of the doors that has the number 53. Of course, this race was the Celebration of Life event here at Michigan, where Stepien and a bunch of others had come together to support Dave Bush, a very good friend of Steven Stepien, as they were both, racing against each other on the sim, and also painted a bunch of cars together, spent a lot of time with each other. And Dave unfortunately lost his battle with cancer a while ago. So before this season, Stepien had requested for us at every lap number 53 to do a silent tribute every time and every race that we do have a lap 53 in honor of Dave Bush and his family. And tonight is a very special and emotional race for Stepien, who returns to this Michigan International Speedway, one that him and Bush race with each other at many times, and a track that's very special to the heart of those two. So Stepien went riding with a heavy heart tonight, with Dave Bush on the sides of his race car, trying to hold off the pressure from Moreno and Forster back in 2nd and 3rd.
And very crucial for most of the field, the top 10 cars exactly have broken away from 11th place Alex Muscarelli. You see the gap there on the top of your screen. That's going to be very important, because if this does stay green to the stage end, that's the cut line for who receives points and who doesn't. And right now, I'm looking at a lot of guys who are below that cut line, not in that top 10. So that's not going to be helpful to their races. There's Forster now side by side for P2. Now make it 3 wide.
They'll look to the inside this time, and they're going to go 3 abreast. And all of the pressure on the outside car, Moreno. Look at the swiping move to the inside. Lawson Peel takes charge in front of those two and makes his presence known inside the top 3. What a drive.
And now the teammates find themselves side by side for P4. Porter on the bottom, unable to really hang on in there. He'll squeeze in behind him and in front of Stephen Harlow. And look who's creeped up into 7th place. It's Cedric Hunter.
And Cedric Hunter, who had crashed from last week's race at Dover, we saw him get turned by James Kunkel coming out of turn 4. They both had went hard into the inside wall. And Hunter's race had been over. We've seen plenty of good stuff from Hunter at the beginning of this season. Plenty of chances that he had at race wins. Several stage W's as well. But Hunter since has sort of plateaued past that all-star break at the virtual Martinsville Speedway. So we'll see if Hunter can be able to gain momentum back. But as we've seen in the second half, things have really opened up, Francisco, with the way we've seen the different winners, from Ross Harlow taking New Hampshire to Craig Parks. All of a sudden, the standout win at Talladega with help from his teammate in those final 2 laps of overtime. And then last week at Dover, the surprise appearance for KBueno Racing and how Jaden Porter was able to step up when it mattered most. Took both of those stages and grabbed the win. So if there's anything predicament-wise in the cards, it's going to be that Cedric Hunter and a bunch of other drivers will have chances to win this season. We haven't seen the usual suspects, win races much like the Lawson Peels of the world, or, the Steven Stempians, or even a bit, of the Brandon Banks, Eric Schaefer's winning these events. So things could open up for Cedric Hunter as he just now gets into the top 6. This single file train going all the way back to Kip Easley back in P10.
Well, now you mention it, Lawson Peel's most recent oval win came at the Auto Club Speedway back at race number 4, the sister racetrack of this venue. Forster gets the wall there off of turn 4. As you see, everybody now move to the inside to try and get past the number 99 machine. But now look at a little bit further up ahead. Lawson Peel has caught up to Steven Stempian and is looking to try and battle for the lead position. And these were the same two that were really fast and battling each other for most of the race at Auto Club.
These two had been so close, and think of Cedric Hunter, the way he put himself in strategy late in that race, TOW Racing, how they stood up at the front for the first stage or so, and with 18 laps to go, now 17 in the opening stage of the race from Michigan, Lawson Peel is going to start to put himself in the cards. Remember at Dover in stage number 2, how he fought so hard to get to the inside of Ross Harlow, could not make the move, and could not snag the lead. This time it may be different. Side draft down the straightaway, back to turn 1. Lawson Peel looking for the top spot.
And he's going to dive it in deep to try and slide up in front of Stempian. Stempian sees that and is going to try to get the run off this corner. But looks like Peel, with just a lot of grip in that race car right now, was able to clear him by multiple car lengths and is able to hold off against any kind of run that Stempian is able to provide. We'll see if Stempian tries something here in turn 3. Does not appear to do so. So Lawson Peel, for what we rarely ever see, takes the lead here in stage 1 after his lack of a qualifying time. But Stempian is not going to quite give it up so easily.
Yeah, the rhythm we've seen from the 3-time winner this season is start at the back, don't put a qualifying time, and by stage 2, let your name be known. But Lawson has stunned out so far in this opening stage and could possibly be in the cards to get his first stage win in a little while. We haven't seen Lawson grab a stage win in a couple of weeks' time. We only have him with about 1 or so stage win this season. And part of my mistake if that is wrong, but Peel had been in a position to win stages multiple times before. But Stempian may not let him get away with this quite yet. Stempian has won 4 stage wins in 2025.
You know who's catching up to both of them right now, Kenneth? The teammates Ethan Fonseca and Jaden Porter. Both of them have bid their time a little bit, and they're slowly creeping up to these two, despite them not going side by side. Moreno probably saved his tires a little bit during that middle portion of the run, and now late in this one is trying to see if he can mount some kind of charge. He's got help from the 91. Stephen Harlow's not too far behind, and the top 4 have kind of broken away, or the top 5 rather, have kind of broken away from Warren Kalkeith. There they go side by side for the top position. What does Moreno do?
And this isn't going to be one of those races where you can separate so far ahead of the rest of this field without at least some drivers fending right behind you. Moreno will give the shove to Stempian. He'll lunge to the inside in 3 and 4, and he will take second in one fell swoop. Steven Stempian goes back to the lead. Harlow to the inside, looking for third. And Porter with no option but to help Peel down this long straightaway. He wants to join his teammate up in the 87 car. Moreno gets a heap of a run down the front straightaway to get to Stempian's rear bumper. No dice yet. Stempian still the leader.
Harlow is also battling Jaden Porter, so that's not going to help Moreno. As you see, Peel tried to get to the quarter panel of the 87 to try and pull him back. That's going to cost everybody in that little bit of time, so Steven Stempian's able to breathe for now. As Peel continues to look to the inside, there's Jaden Porter trying to get to the outside of Peel, but he's got Stephen Harlow to his inside, so it's not really able to help the 91 there.
And one thing you could do here in Michigan is send it through the corners and still make it stick. Draft will matter a ton when you're out of turn 2 and turn number 4. that's where you're going to count on your friends or your teammates to get with you, but down these corners is where you can get such a big advantage. Here comes Moreno, looking back to the inside. He wants to return to the lead. We saw these two go at it at Dover last week until Muscarella stepped in and got both of their positions from them. Stepien returns to the inside. And now the question is, who does that tertiary car help? Where does Lawson go in the attempt to get by either of these two? He'll stick to the inside. He'll follow in the tracks of Stepien down the 3 and 4 area of the racetrack, and Moreno will have to try and fight back. He will, for the moment, stays off the pressure, and everyone inside the top 9 within at least a second and 3/10.
And Stephen Harlow got by Jaden Porter, and we'll see what he decides to do in this battle. He's the only one not associated with any of these guys. He's in a completely different team than the other ones in this battle, so he has no one that he's obliged to help with. You see them side by side for the top position. Once again, Moreno on the bottom. It's not going to be ideal because Peel will get to the outside here, so they're going to freight train him by on the outside. Now Harlow will get there as well, and Peel's not going to peek to the inside. He definitely wants to hold up on that outside, make sure that he can clear the 87 and have no worries before he decides to attack on Lawson Peel. But Moreno will stay side by side with the 9. There's a little bit of contact of Peel into the outside wall. Porter getting into the 11 car, which invites Warren Kyle Keith to try and battle for the top 5.
And Warren Kyle Keith had been hanging around here through this front pack. He had been putting himself in the top 5 here and there, but for the most part, the best qualifier of this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season has not shined just yet. Here in this race from Michigan, there's a look at that opening pack going all the way to the 10th place car in Kip Easley, who has actually fallen off this pack, but it's 1st through 9th that are all within each other's grasp. Brandon Banks about a 2nd and a 10th back from the race leader, which is now the battle between Lawson Peel and Steven Stepien. May not be the run that Peel wants out of turn 4. He'll look to the inside to possibly stave off some of the side draft pressure, and they'll bang doors down the straightaway to turn 1.
Oh, racing is intense here with 10 laps to go in this stage. We saw Moreno get sideways off of 4 a little bit and have to run the block on the 78 of Warren Kyle Keith, who almost gets into him in turn 1, as Porter now gets behind the 87 to try and help the 87 get away from that group. And here comes Stephen Harlow now. As he watches the leaders go side by side, he'll help Steven Stepien down the straightaway, and Stephen Harlow will clear for 2nd.
And what a drive by Stephen Harlow to get through into the top 2. We haven't seen him much in the top 5. I mean, he had been sticking around there, making some moves here and there, but the Project Hopner Chevrolet makes his put in the spotlight here at lap number 42 to the start-finish line. And now Peel
gets to the
outside.
Wow, that was actually a really good move. I wasn't expecting Peel to make that one right there in the straightaway like that to get to the outside. But given the fact that he had broken that bubble, he was in a position to do so, and he'll stay there off the corner. The 11 has a bit of a bobble, and Peel's able to get a really good side draft. Will Harlow try to clear up? No, he won't. Here comes Moreno, and now Peel peeks to the inside for the top spot.
Could this be a possible reoccurrence of what happened in Stage 2 last week at Dover, where nobody got away from each other and it was all the way to the wire about who would take the stage? It's going to be 7 laps to go next time by, 6 laps to go at the stripe, and Lawson Peel with the lead, but for about 3 or 4 seconds, Stepien back to the inside. Harlow to help. They'll touch into turn 1. Moreno right behind with help from his teammate in Jaden Porter. Can they go 3 abreast to turn 2? For right now, it's no. And there's Richard Modric, a car that got involved in our opening caution of the race, to go to the inside, let everyone through. And Steven Stepien going to try and be in position to get his 5th career stage win of the year.
Well, the difference between this and Dover, Kenneth, is that the 16 was, you could definitely argue, was slower than the 4 or 5 cars that were behind him. I don't think any of these guys are slower than the others that they're racing, as Porter gets into the wall, trying to push the 87 further up ahead, and now Cedric Hunter battles them. I think it's just a matter of, if you're not the race leader, you just get such a huge run down these straightaways with the draft that you look so much faster, because as soon as someone gets to the lead, they're immediately under fire.
Yeah, this is one of those speedways where you cannot really get away. And from the early stints at Auto Club, that's what we noted. I mean, tire wear had been such a big part of that race. You know, you talk about the top 4, how they had put themselves in their different league from everyone else, but all of a sudden, those guys who took care of their Goodyear Eagles started slowly working their way through the field, and by the end of stage 1, they had put themselves in position to win the stage, or at least in the top 3 to get some good points. And you're seeing it here just a bit, mirrored image from the top 9, as they're all still within at least a second or so. Kip Easley remains as that final car in the top 10, and there may be some pressure from Justin Urban, Alex Muscarella down the line, so that could ignite our only battle for the stage points. And And what's going to be that singular point given to that 10th place driver when you get to the green and checkered flag at lap 50. But for right now, everyone in the top 9 are clearing away the best, and they're going to be those drivers getting those points should nothing arise, and if any cautions start to wave.
And Lawson Peel continues to try to work that bottom. It's very difficult to make the bottom work. He'll get side by side with the 88 again. You see him try to go up the side draft, and I will say this, Kenneth, it's going to be difficult for the driver on the inside to make that side draft. How many countless cautions have we seen from drivers trying to make the side draft on the inside work, and they just carelessly spin the car on the outside and trying to make that work?
And once again, Stepien will look to the inside. He'll have help this time from
little bit of contact.
And more contact. They have been so aggressive side drafting each other. I don't know if there's any moment where they haven't made contact in the attempt to do so. But Stepien looks back under. Peel will have the chance to cross over out of turn 4. And that's a big time wash up through the final corner. Harlow will have a look to the inside. He'll keep the side draft going on the bottom end of that Napa Auto Care number 9 Chevrolet. There goes Lawson, peeking through the middle. He'll try to charge underneath back to turn 1. And we know just how good these two are at racing each other, Francisco. They have years and years of experience going at each other like this. But in this next-gen era, I'd say the competition between these two has been so fiery. Harlow in the wall. Slightly, he'll get to the back of Peel's Chevrolet. Keep him in the lead back to turn 3.
Stepien tried to pressure Peel there. You see Peel straddling that apron. He's the only one I've seen straddle it as Anderson went all the way down there. Now Harlow to the outside of Stepien. If Peel gives him that draft, that could try to help the 11 get clear. But you see Peel wants to keep both of them side by side. But a lot of that contact, I presume, Kenneth, is just perpetrated by what I was talking about, which is the car on the inside just getting into the car on the outside in the attempt to side draft. With these next gens, the side draft is super effective, but it is especially effective when you make contact. And unfortunately, I must say, one of the parts on iRacing where obviously it shows how it's not like the real life cars is that it almost automatically will spin the car on the inside in that, or the car on the outside in that situation.
It's a blessing and a curse, right? You have so much power from the side draft, but again, any sort of miniature contact, any sort of small amounts of weaving and bobbing with the side drafting will possibly get you in trouble. And nearly you saw it there. Stepien was getting to the side of Lawson Peel Chevrolet from the outside and nearly got into him. They possibly sucked into each other a little bit as they were coming into turn 1. But Stepien nonetheless stays on the bottom. He will reap the benefits of staying in the draft with Lawson Peel, but he won't get the benefit of getting the race lead yet. Here's a good push off of the straightaway. Stepien back to the inside, and Harlow will look once again from third. How about Cedric Hunter, who has slid into the top 4, and I'm sure is loving this battle right in front of him, Francisco. Nothing says slowing down more than these two guys, or 3 guys rather, going side by side and fighting for everything that it's worth. We'll come down to the final race, so the final lap here in Stage 1.
And not only do we have a battle for the stage win, but we also still have a battle for P10 as Justin Erb and Alex Muscarella and even Kip Easley are all in this battle for the final position. They're 3 wide, almost 4 wide as Cedric Hunter tries to join this battle.
And we saw just how crazy it was from the front-running 3, now make it 4 and nearly 5. 3 abreast for second place going in at turn 3, and there is one more lunge for Lawson Peel at the bottom of the speedway. They'll come across the green and checkered flag, this time by for the end of the stage. Hunter to the inside. They'll make it 3 abreast for second, but Lawson Peel will hold on to win stage number 1.
And coming to the line, it'll be Justin Erb hanging on from Alex Muscarella to take home the 10th and final stage point. That's going to help that number 20 even just a little bit in his battle to stay or gain on that cut line.
And a great fight there from Erb. We saw how Kip Easley had been that last man standing. He was all by himself on the racetrack. And lo and behold, things don't work out. He misses just on the final stage point available. Justin Erb is able to swing it. Colin Forster, Warren Cow, Keith, Moreno, Banks, Porter, Harlow, Stepien, Hunter, and then Lawson Peel, your front-running 10 as we come to the end of the first stage. And they'll pick up the iRacing official pace car for the first time tonight under stage caution conditions from Michigan. So again, a big surprise, Francisco, to see Lawson Peel up front early. But I'm guessing that opening caution helped him out a ton. Obviously, it slowed the field down considerably, but he had made good progress even before that yellow flew with the likes of James Kunkel and Brad Fulham, and the likes of them that went spinning and had some sort of trouble. Richard Modric rather going into turn number 1. But Lawson has made considerable progress tonight. I'd say that's the fastest we've seen the Columbus, Mississippi native get to the front of the field. Usually it takes by stage 2 midway for him to put himself in the fight, but this dog definitely has an early jump to it.
I think a lot of that probably has to do with just the way you race Michigan. We saw a great example the entirety of the stage how everybody, as long as you have a draft, is able to just make passes and get in position to gain spots. And I think Lawson Peel, even though he did restart back there, you saw the rest of the field outside of the top 8 or 9. They lost a lot of time to your leaders. And Lawson, we know he has great pace, so I think eventually he just was going to find himself up there. It just happened a lot quicker with the easier opportunity he had to make those passes from the position he was in. But now we find ourselves on pit road. The first time these fields will make their way into the pit lane to get 4 fresh tires and fill the car up with fuel all the way up. They're going to need every drop of it to try and make it to the end of the stage. We saw them be able to go the entirety of stage 1 there without having to really... Actually, look right there. That's the 87 out of fuel.
Yeah, you talked about how things were going to get close to the end of stage 1, and our pole sitter is in trouble. Used up too much fuel, and that car is coasting to the entry of pit road. May just be a question mark as to whether he will be able to make his pit box entirely, and should he miss it, it will be a tow right to the pit lane. Battle for the lead off of pit road, won by Lawson Peel. Cedric Hunter got real close. Jaden Porter, Steven Stepien, and Warren Kyle Keith, the top 5. But
He's
just like last week,
right
Francisco Moreno has hit some bad luck.
He might get there basically just about running out. He's still got some decent enough speed in the car, and he's about 15 stalls away. I'm riding on board with him right now. He's going to get to his stall, and if he's lucky, he's not going to lose a lap. There's his stall right there.
So he gets into it. There's Lawson Peel from the front of the field. Hunter, Porter, Stepien, and Keith, like we mentioned, the rest of this top 5 as they will pick up the iRacing official pace car. And through that pit stop, that marks the lap 53 area of this race. And of course, our tribute to a great friend of ours and a great friend of Steven Stepien and Dave Bush. We had a celebration of life race here at Michigan International Speedway, and it was an emotional one for Stepien, who was able to walk away with that win in a race that ended with phenomenal racing to the checkered flag, and all of that with the message of supporting Bush and his family. He recently lost his battle, so throughout 2025, we have been honoring Dave Bush at every single lap 53 of the year. This one, no different here from Michigan. And with our first caution of the race thrown for a crash in a turn 1, second yellow thrown for the ending of stage number 1, and a hard-fought win in the stage for Lawson Peel to get all of those points. And now he will have to fight off the field once more. Probably we'll see the same bit of action. I mean, same cast of characters, but it's a revival of battle from Auto Club Speedway earlier this season, Francisco. Cedric Hunter, dark horse in those final 2 laps of the stage, put himself 3 wide on the inside looking for the second spot. And now he will hold the outside of the front row as we get back to the green flag.
And Ethan Fonseca was able to get away with the fuel in his race car. He'll be in the 28th position, so a lot of track position lost for the 87. But if there's any kind of silver lining he'll have is that he saw how Lawson Peel was able to drive his way up through the top 10. We know the 87 has a good car under him, so definitely don't count out this 87 yet.
So it's Peel, Hunter, Stepien, Porter, Harlow, your top 5. Warren Kyle Keith back there as well. Brandon Banks, Justin Erb, Chris Cabot, and Richard Swavely. We talked about Chris Cabot being right on the edge of that top 16 cut line. He's going to need a good race tonight from Michigan. He has been a little quiet so far, but car number 25 is just going to put himself up here in the top 15 for the moment. Can he hang on to it as Lawson Peel will take the field through the Geico restart zone for the second time tonight? First one right off of stage number 1. Stage 2 underway.
Good restart for Peel. And you see third place, the 91 of Jaden Porter, able to clear the 45 of Cedric Connor, and that leaves Warren Cal Keith to go side by side for that position. And Keith is actually able to take away the third position there. As you see, they've worked their way off of turn 2 as a little bit of cloud cover has found its way up over turns 1 and 2. Hunter down to 4th, Steven Stepien up into 5th. As Lawson Peel keeps away the top position.
And we didn't see a lot of the pressure from the rearview mirror, but here comes Porter, possibly with a chance to look at the inside. We saw them have a bit of battling at Dover Motor Speedway last week. Not a small sample size in comparison to what we've seen between those two in the 4Wide Racing TJ Team Series on Wednesdays. Of course, KBueno Racing, very experienced group on that side of things, but as they join this series...
Oh, and around goes Ethan Fonseca Moreno.
Moreno, who had lost fuel pressure, is going for the
save!
And he saves it off turn 2. Unbelievable job.
I'm not sure if the 82 had a moment there entering turn 1 or not, but he basically went just about straight up the racetrack and basically was turning Moreno for half the corner before the 87 eventually got sideways, and an incredible save by Moreno there, I gotta give him credit for.
And it was Eric Stewart who made the initial contact. Moreno slid, gets the touch from Stewart. And what a great save by not only Moreno, but Stewart, who got skidding through the inside grass at the bottom of the racetrack. Casey Neiden getting the brakes to work together. And he's able to slow down before getting into it. Now it's spinner, Justin Erb down the back straightaway.
And he spins into the inside wall, comes back up into the field. You see the rear end damage there. Might have made some contact with the inside wall, but the yellow flag does wave, and that's a good break for the 87, who we just talked about, went for that spin, or the half spin that lost him a bunch of time. And this will bunch up the field. Actually, no rear damage for the 20, probably just went spinning and was able to keep it off the inside wall. We'll get the replay here and see how that counted, as we were just seeing the recovery effort from the 87 on his incident. So here's the 92 on the inside of the 20, gets sideways and trying to correct the car, and then right there, just not sure if he thought he wasn't clear of the 20 or what the situation was there, but you see him come back up the track here. Fortunately, there was nobody there, but we'll have to get a second look at it, Kenneth, to see exactly what the 92 did.
Yeah, that's the moment of yellow initially, so we'll try to get a better look at it as they were coming off of turn number 2. But you're right, it all starts with that Taco Bell machine, the white and purple Chevrolet on the inside of Jason Anderson, who had already been sideways through the middle of turns 1 and 2, got a bit sideways, moved up the track, and there's the bit of contact to the quarter panel of Erb, who goes spinning. And more often than not, when you're spinning underneath the apron, there won't be a yellow flag to fly because you aren't in the active racing line, but because he had rolled right back up the speedway and gone past that white line while everyone was going by, that's the cause of the yellow flag. And Justin Erb, like we said, giving the tribute to his grandfather, a Korea veteran, and one that earned his Purple Heart, fighting for our country, had passed away recently. So again, our thoughts and prayers, our love to the Justin Erb family and to Justin himself. He will stay out here as a bunch of drivers at the back will hit pit road. Possibly a cause of area where, Francisco, you'd like to come down pit road. You know, we saw what happened with Moreno. The last thing you want to do is run out of fuel. Probably not the dumbest decision out here to come down pit road and get a bit of extra fuel. Eric Schaefer and Muscarella going to be those two, including Moreno.
Another thing, Kenneth, besides obviously ensuring you don't run out of fuel, maybe just getting a little bit less fuel in your car in for that final stage. We know that with the next-gen car, it takes, even with the slower pit stops that iRacing has had for years, which they have not managed to improve to the 10 or even 9 seconds that we see almost every single week in the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, they still hover around 13, maybe 14 seconds. So even with the fuel, you could probably save about half a second or 1 second on your pit stop with the full 100% tank. If you don't have to take nearly as much fuel as the most of the field, you could probably gain a couple positions.
So we'll see what that call entails for Eric Schaefer and Alex Muscarella. We saw those two at the front of this field earlier on tonight. And obviously with Moreno being our pole sitter, we got to watch him as well. But give or take, probably 6 or 7 cars, maybe less than that come down pit road. And a majority of the field will stay out here, of course, here on lap number 59. And we'll come down to the final 40 of stage number 2. With Lawson Peel leading. But this is a good opportunity. I mean, we saw that early on in stage 1, chance for some drivers to save fuel, and I kind of start wondering if Moreno had not saved enough fuel while we were under the yellow flag, or whether something else happened to give him the situation that he had happened to him as we got to the pit stop and as everyone came in for a bit of service. We'll keep an eye on the 87 car, the pole sitter, as he tries to work back up through the front of the field. Let's get a moment to talk with the Stage 1 winner while we have a chance. Lawson, you got a copy with us? All right, Lawson. Well, Stage 1 win. It's the first time in a little bit that we've seen you win a stage here in 2025. What did you pick up over the first 50 or so laps from Michigan?
Yeah, it was a hard-fought battle. The right front's obviously just shearing right off the thing, so it's just, a lot of discipline required in the center of the corner, slowing your center speed down. You know, the you can see we were crossing each other over there, and the draft is such that you can't get away from anybody. So, you get the lead, the guy you're racing kind of gets a run back to you. You can cross over, which makes for a lot of fun racing. It's really fun, but I think we were all down like in the 30s on our right fronts there. So it's pretty tight.
Well, Lawson, it was a very successful stage one. I know stage two at Dover, you were in the midst of a very close top 5 battle. Maybe we'll see the same here in the second stage for the rest of it. But congrats on the stage win, Lawson. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Hopefully talk to y'all later on.
That's Lawson Peel, the Columbus, Mississippi native, winner of stage number 1, and he will command the field back to the green flag here at lap number 61 with the Dover Motor Speedway winner, Jaden Porter, directly on the outside to react. Pace car comes down, lap 61 underway from Michigan after our second on-track yellow. Green flag waves. Warren Kyle Keith will stick right behind the 9 Chevrolet with help from Steppy into turn 1. And a solid getaway from Peel as he'll get dragged back in again. Warren Kyle Keith makes the look up high, and he makes it look easy. He'll search for the lead, this time by out of turn 2, and he'll get denied the chance to do so. Nearly 3 wide entering turn 3.
And stepping on the inside of Cedric Hunter, trying to see if he can get into the 4th spot. Porter clips the apron, gets a little bit of sideways, just as the 78 of Warren Kyle Keith has a moment. Them side by side is going to help Lawson Peel keep that top position for now. And you see Cedric Hunter gets clear, tries to mount a charge for P3 on the outside. And how about a recovery for Richard Swavely? Had an early moment and a huge dive by the 92 to his inside, Jason Anderson.
And he started outside front row, and it was a considerable fall off, was near the accident on our first caution of the race. And now Swavely going to get back into the swing of things as here's the battle for the lead. Here's a switch around at turn 3. Warren Kyle Keith becomes the new race leader. 62 laps in the books and fresh off of his best career DTH Cup Series race. 2nd place at Dover last week.
Last couple of weeks has been a little bit better for Warren Kyle Keith. In the first portion of the season, we saw him have really great qualifying efforts that resulted in not as good race finishes for him, despite some solid performances and good speed out of his 78. But over the last couple of weeks, and even he mentioned it, maybe qualify okay and finishing better is probably going to be the way to go. And that's really kind of what it's been for the 78 the last couple of weeks. Has not qualified nearly as good as he had done so earlier in the season, but those results are there, and it's really starting to help him out on the points front in terms of trying to solidify his spot above the cut line.
Only had 2 top 10s in the first half of the regular season, but post All-Star break, in the last 4 races, 3 of them have been top 10 efforts, including that runner-up finish at the Monster Mile last Sunday night. So if there's anything to consider, it's that Warren Kyle Keith may be the turnaround comeback driver of the year as he takes over the lead. No pressure from behind quite yet, although Lawson Peel will try to make an effort at it. And just like he said, right front was nearly shearing off that entire end of the run, going to the end of stage number 1. And I'd assume that possibly there will be some more conservation down the line, but if it comes down to lap number 100 and there are still at least 4 to 5 cars in the group, you may think of it fighting all the way to the very end, no matter how hard you're running that right front tire. And how about Jason Anderson? First time we talk of the Taco Bell Chevrolet. Looking to the inside, he's got 4th place for now.
And what I'm looking at right now, Kenneth, is that Chris Broger and Stephen Harlow have been side by side for about 3 laps in a row until now. And what that has allowed is the top 7 to get over a second clear of the second pack and really break away. You see it right there. The last car in that group now being the set 92 of Jason Anderson. As there's a spin further back, Clifton Ashley goes for the spill on the inside of the racetrack, continues to lose positions. He's down to 27th. What a save by the 76.
And a great job for Ashley in his first career dropping the Hammah Cup Series race, making his debut appearance tonight from Michigan. And although the spin gets him out of contention for now, he will continue with a clean race car. Back up front, Anderson slides in through 5th. And Lawson Peel challenges the St. Augustine, Florida native with a chance at the race lead. He'll try and fight right back to the inside, allowing Keith the opportunity to make the move up high. And it'll bring back in 3rd and 4th place. Stempien and Porter waiting in the ranks for the moment to strike.
And here's the replay of what happened to the 76. He was on the inside of Brandon Banks. And what you'll know about this racetrack is on that very bottom lane below that seam, there's less banking, and he was on the transition trying to make the pass. Car steps away from him, and it nearly does so there. Able to hang on, loses all his track position, but an incredible job on keeping the car pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a very tough place to be here at Michigan, and from the last incident with Justin Erb spinning across the back straightaway with Jason Anderson getting into it, you think it was the exact same scenario, right? You're right on the seam at the top end of the first groove. You're kind of in the middle between being at the very bottom at the yellow line versus being on that first seam with the right side tires on. And as you make that trip up out of either the second or the fourth corner, the car will start to step out, and through that tiny transition, it really upsets the rear end of the next-gen car, and it'll get you spinning or sliding in some case. So great save by the rookie in Clifton Ashley, and we'll keep an eye on the rookie as he continues on through this race. They're stepping, looking to the inside. How about nearly 3 abreast into turn 1? Wanted to look at it. Warren Kyle Keith will back out. Jaden Porter will stay through in 4th. Peel will take the race lead, and there's the right side of your screen. Moreno nearly getting a tap from behind, and he saves it.
And that was a replay from about a lap or so ago. Kivett had gotten loose, and just as he was re-emerging onto the racetrack, got into the back of the 87, cost him about 2 positions there. So Moreno has not had luck with some cars around him on his inside tonight.
And it's been tough over his first couple of starts here in this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. We talked about the fall-off early from Dover, had the race lead from the pole, fell back to the top 10, and at the moment, you know, midway through, we were thinking of, okay, it's an 11th place, 10th place finish for Moreno, and then got caught up in the mess of Cedric Hunter, Eric Schaefer, James Conco and company as they got each other out of turn 4, and it caught Moreno at the worst possible time, was carrying a ton of pace by the time he got to the scene of the accident, and he had pummeled in, basically creating his first DNF in his first start. Now, still trying to claw back after losing fuel pressure at the end of stage number 1 as they came down pit road, and there's a slider, and it's Warren Kyle Keith. Goes right through the grass, and I'm not sure whether he had help or not, but he will save it. We will stay green. All of the track position will be lost, but I think he'll prefer a saved race car over a junked track position run.
And let's see, there's the onboard with him. And off the corner, you see Porter gets there, but it appears like he was already sideways when that happened, Kenneth, so I'm not too sure. We'll have to get the onboard from Jaden Porter to really have a good idea.
And it can get very close, razor thin in the margins between somebody just stepping out on their own self or a driver giving help from behind. And more often than not, it's kind of unprovoked, that contact from the back, because they don't expect the car to be sliding that much and losing too much speed. And all of a sudden, it creates an issue there for Warren Kyle Keith, who with that singular mistake will drop all the way back to 28th, penultimate car on the lead lap. Here comes Porter to the inside looking for the lead, and now Jason Anderson will spin off the nose of Colin Forrester. And he'll try to save it, but the yellow flag raises regardless. And after tons of chaos, Jason Anderson becomes the end of the sequence to bring us our 3rd caution for on-track incident.
And let's see if we can get that view of Jaden Porter with Warren Kyle Keith that resulted in the 78 spinning. Here's the view off the corner. You see the 78 was sideways. Maybe a little bit of contact is what helped the 78 go fully around. A little bit of both, I would say, on that one, Kenneth. But let's see what happened to the 92 here. Forster on his inside, and it honestly, Kenneth, it looks like the very thing that the 92 did to Justin Erb is exactly what happened to him here.
And he was just trying to get off the outside wall there and just bounced off of Forrester's nose coming out of the second corner. So we get a better look at it here. And that wine purple Taco Bell machine is at the end of it again off of turn 2. Thought he was going to hit the wall, comes down. Forrester has the run, and obviously nowhere to go for Forrester. Is going to tag on to the quarter panel of Anderson, who locks it up and keeps it straight. I think one thing I've noticed here from Michigan is that you can spin under the apron down the back straightaway, but the yellow will still ignite. It's one of those few tracks where you can still spin under the active line, and the iRacing admins will throw the yellow. Of course, we usually have race control week in, week out here in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, but iRacing by themselves controls the yellows in most other situations, and I guess there with the spin underneath the white line, it was more than enough for them to throw that cautionary flag. So everyone will come down pit road with a little under 30 to go in stage 2.
And Forrester has some pretty good front-end damage on his race car.
Yeah, I got the touch in from the sideways spinner of Anderson. And so the 99 car will try to take a trip down pit road and repair whatever he has with the crinkle on his Toyota Camry. Meanwhile, fight off of pit road. We saw it very close from the end of the first stage with Peel and Hunter. This time around, no pressure for car number 9. He will remain in the race lead. Will the fight find itself somewhere else? For now, the answer is no. And it would be Peel, Porter, Hunter. How about Chris Progar? Very quick stop. Puts him up in the top 5 off pit road. 14.7.
It looks like I would give it, that's about 5 cars that stayed out there on the racetrack right now, as this is, found ourselves with a really thick cloud here over this racetrack that has really put us in a cloudy condition. I know we're in the spring now, and there's been some insane all-time Midwest storms the past couple of weeks, Kenneth. It's been talked about in our own group chat. Here's the weather right now: 76 degrees, air temperature, super cool for this time of year, with a 95-degree track temperature, almost no wind, which I'll say is rare. But with this cloud cover, it almost gives you a thunderstorm-esque feeling.
Yeah, with the lack of sunshine across the racetrack, for a couple of moments it does lower that track temperature, and it can give the opportunity for some grip to change. And from what we've seen with the oval refresh, when he got added to iRacing, may be a little bit of implement there with the amount of energy everyone's putting onto the racetrack, and some parts of the racetrack are cloudier than others. You could find a little more grip in other lanes than you would if the sun is shining right on the speedway. So about 4 cars will stay out for this next restart at lap 75. Alex Muscarella will take the lead for the first time tonight. D-Legacy Motor Club's James Kunkel will follow suit on the outside of row 1. Parker Bland, the secondary D-Legacy Motor Club car, will be on the inside of row 2. And then Warren Kyle Keith, I think with the situation that befell him out of turn 4, Francisco, possibly forced into this alternate call of strategy just to regain the track position.
Maybe, but it appears that Steven Stempien had taken no tires, and that was a mistake on his part because he's back down pit road taking tires.
Also, another mistake for the Methuen, Massachusetts native, who last week at Dover was going to pit with 50 laps to go in the race and had overcooked the entry, hit the side of the pit road barrels that flanked the wall. And from there, had a pit road speeding penalty, had gone multiple laps down, and from there, his race ended, and he has not been able to find the good luck tonight. Obviously, still a long way to go as we are just about halfway tonight from Michigan, but like we've seen before, Stempien ends up with a mistake, and at the moment, we haven't been able to see a full resurgence from one of the co-owners of the league. As the field will come out of turn number 4, Muscarella will have the advantage, and he will have discretion on this restart with the Toyota Camry of Parker Bland right behind the Lowe's Chevrolet. Pace car to the entrance of pit road, and all eyes on Muscarella. He will lead this field through the Geico restart zone. Bit of a bobble through the inside lane, but nonetheless, we are back going from Michigan, and watch that first fresh tire car, the blue and white number 9 Chevrolet, to the inside of turn 1.
See what he did. Oh, the big crash further back.
And they're spinning already. I believe that's Eric Schaefer. No, it's not. Casey Knighton and a couple of others find trouble entering turn 1. And there is the culprit, Stephen Harlow, in the middle of it all. There's Clifton Ashley, Colin Forrester, and Kip Leasy involved in our biggest crash of the night.
They were already going 3 wide before turn 1, and that appears where the trouble started. See right here, the 11 through the middle, barely gets into the 7, and that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, Kenneth, is that this car, you get close to the car on the outside, and it almost is an instant spin, which I'm not a huge fan of, if I'm being honest, but it'll just automatically spin the car on the outside, and unfortunately for Kip Easley, nowhere to go there, and fortunate for all 3 of them, they didn't immediately spin back up the racetrack while cars were still at a high rate of speed. Some guys didn't get so lucky, it could have easily been a lot worse.
It was faint 3 wide, nowhere for Modric and for Ashley to be. There's Ashley with a secondary spin, and Colin Forster, who had been right at the back end of our last caution flag of the race. Right off of turn 2, it appears he's involved in this again, and his car is behind the wall. Get a look from Forster entering turn 1. You'll see the trouble. There's the smoke. And he doesn't hit the brakes until he realizes Harlow's there.
Yeah, just unfortunate for Forster. And on the other side of that, Kenneth, it was Actually, a good chance for Steven Stempien to miss that wreck. His onboard tells the whole story.
And there's Stempien, who, again, had to come down pit road for a second time. Didn't put any tires on his Chevrolet. Here comes the field in front of him. And he locks up, barely gets a piece of both cars coming down the banking. Unbelievable job for Steven Stempien. Class A wreck avoidance there into the corner. And that is so far our biggest crash of the night, involving at least 4 to 5, maybe 6 machines in there, if you count the likes of Kip Easley and company, who, by the way, come into this race with some points that they desperately need. Coming into tonight, that 16th place car of Chris Cabot has a 19-point advantage over Casey Knighton. Then you look further up the road, Richard Swavely, who started tonight outside of the front row. Kip Easley, who had to slow down right for that incident where Colin Forster was coming down the speedway. He's only 12 points above that cut line. Alexander Muscarella, who decided to come out and stay out here to lead some laps from Michigan. He's about 31 points clear of that cut line. So it is going to be very close between those guys as we step into the final 4 races of our regular season past Michigan, and we enter the likes of Pocono, Nashville, Gateway, and Daytona for the rest of the regular season. Well, for now, we will remain under the yellow flag for what will be, I believe, the 4th time tonight.
Well, you know what they say, Kenneth? Cautions will breed cautions, and that's exactly what's happened, it appears, in these last 20 laps.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot, but how much of that is a product of what we've seen for the 3 and 4 wide action as they come into the corner? Because, you know, that's exactly what happened as they were entering. You know, a bit of that 3 wide faintly, and you make a bit of contact. Not sure if that's just a product of things we've seen from our most recent yellows. A lot of them are single or 2-car accidents. That one seemed to have wadded up very, very many drivers.
But I think that was our first instance of 3 or 4 wide almost really being the cause of an incident, because up until then, I think most of our previous cautions all came from minor contact that has spun the car on the outside. And I mentioned it earlier, and I think I was talking to you about this during one of our times off the air. You're on the inside and you try to side draft someone on the outside or just get close to them, and if you do make the contact, it's going to spin the car on the outside out, and that's just not exactly what is the result of that kind of contact. If we're really being honest here, usually the cars will bounce off one another or slow down, but you never see that car on the outside just get turned so immediately like that. Like, you have no opportunity to save the race car, and it's unfortunate for the car on the outside, because not the car on the inside isn't trying to turn him, but that's just a byproduct of the circumstances represented here.
Yeah, it's a tough break for a lot of those guys who were involved in that accident. And Stephen Harlow, I mean, had been one of the strongest cars in stage 1, put himself in the fight through the top 3. By the final laps, going to lap 50, his car is torn up, but he will continue still being able to put forth some laps here. 27th is where he will restart as we get our next green flag going. It'll be lap number 79, and the cars that have stayed out have reaped the rewards as of right now. Great jump from those on the inside. Warren Kyle Keith may have picked up a bit of damage as they were coming to the front straightaway restart zone. Kunkel looking to the inside for the lead on Muscarella.
And 3 wide further back with Jaden Porter on the bottom. Parker Bland, she slides up a little bit in front of the 78, costs him a little bit of time. Here goes Lawson Peel trying to jump to the outside of Kunkel, unable to get there. Lawson now side by side with Jaden Porter as Kunkel's trying to defend both of those positions. See 3 wide further back with Eric Schaefer, Chris Gabot, and the 78 of Warren Cal Keith. There's Lawson Peel and Jaden Porter driving by the 42. They're going to try to catch up to Muscarella as now Cedric Hunter joins the fray.
And that was a great moment for Muscarella. Got away by at least 4 to 5 tenths of a second, and now he will be able to play a bit more defense and try to register what's going down in the rearview mirror, but it may not be one that happens slowly. Here comes Porter, dive to the inside through turns 1 and 2, and as long as they stay side by side, Peel and Hunter will have a chance to creep up to the top 3. Kunkel playing defense on Gabot. Here comes Peel. Look at the lead, 3 wide, entering turn 3.
Heel nearly went all the way to the apron. Expect him to straddle that bottom like he's done occasionally. He'll go there momentarily to clear Porter for the top position and stay a couple car lengths ahead. Cedric Hunter now clears for the 3rd spot. And how about Brandon Banks finding himself up into the top 5 for the first time?
Saw him break out at Dover last week in those final few laps. could not hold off the very strong Jaden Porter, but the Myrtle Beach, South Carolinian is putting himself in a position to win stage number 2 with 19 to go. Got the fight with Muscarella to the outside while Peel takes away the race lead. And just like we saw from stage number 1, the fight for the lead is never decided over a lap. Porter is going to make the move down low. He'll switch over, take the lead, but does Peel strike back in turn 4?
And I wonder how many of these guys watch the line that Peel has taken through turn 3 of straddling that apron and will attempt to try that as there's 4 wide off of turn 4 for a moment.
There's a look on board with Porter, and as things get hectic in the mid-pack, everyone trying to find their place. And remember, these are in the midst of the old tire cars that have stayed out this long. James Kunkel and Parker Bland, they've fallen to 16th and 17th. Warren Kyle Keith has dropped off considerably to 24th. So in the effort to get around, it's 3 and 4, nearly 5 wide as they were heading to the front straightaway. 1, 2, 3, Porter, Peel, and Hunter out of turn 4. Banks and Eric Schaefer back into 5th and 6th.
Oh,
and nearly
again.
4 wide again. Justin Urban, Alex Muscarello through the middle.
And on the very bottom is the 87 of Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Gabo almost gets clear on the top. They stay for wide contact. Around goes the 87 to 20 hard into the outside wall.
And they'll go hard into the barrier. Yellow flag waves. And there it is, a huge crash, and the second one that we see Justin Urban involved into, and for the second straight week, Ethan Fonseca Moreno's car is torn up.
Oh, yeah. You see the smoke rolling out of the 87. That's big engine damage on him. He went head on into the outside wall. He was on the very bottom and got the contact from the 20, and that basically is the end of his race, yes.
So we'll see if we can get a better look, but it started from the 4 wide. Moreno looked to the inside. There was Herb Muscarello through the middle. Chris Cabot, we talked about how well of a race he needed to have tonight because he is on the edge of the point standings to make the playoffs. And it looked like things were okay, but it was right there. Muscarello gets into the side of Herb, sends him sliding up the track as he caught Moreno up the banking. And then there was nowhere for the Rickman to go. Richard Swavely gets a heavy piece of it as they went right up to the outside wall. And Swavely just thinking he can get away with things in a matter of moments. Here's the onboard look from Moreno as they're fighting for a spot inside the top 7.
And Swavely, he wasn't involved in any of this, but you see the main contact will happen on the outside between the 48 and the 20. Just slight contact sends the 20 down into the 87. And there you see just how hard of an impact it was to the outside wall. That is going to end your race 10 times out of 10.
And in a series that has no fast repairs given to the drivers, that is basically race over. Moreno will take his car to pit road, smoke billowing out of the front end of his Chevrolet. And yeah, that may be dashed hopes at staying in this race for now. Bad luck hitting Moreno week in and week out from Dover. We noted the huge crash he was involved into late in the race entering turn 1. Tonight, it's a 4 wide sequence that gets him bouncing off of Justin Herb's Chevrolet and gets him spinning directly head-on into the safer barrier. Justin Herb will fall a lap down as he's repairing his race car. He comes into pit road now. And for Richard Swavely, 25th place car, he will also hit pit road.
And we talked about this earlier as well, Kenneth, earlier in the show, is the fact that iRacing doesn't have the spotter have the ability to call 4 wide. And incidents like that can probably stem from the fact that he does not call 4 wide in your ear, tell you that you are 4 wide. You'd have to have somebody actually spot for you to let you know you're 4 in that situation, because when you're 4, the spotter will still tell you 3 wide, but you actually don't know the gap that each car has to one another. And that's probably exactly what happened to the 20 and the 48. After being 4 wide for so long, you just don't know how close that car all the way on the inside on either extreme is to one another, and it can result in an incident like that. So I think the day that they do add the spotter pack with the ability to call 4 wide in that instance, it'll be super helpful in this track to most of these drivers. It'll just help incidents like that probably be less chaotic and happen less frequently.
And you think of the situational awareness for all these drivers, and a ton of them don't have spotters that are people. You know, a lot of times these iRacing drivers will just rely on that sim stamped spotter that gives them all the information they need, whether it be from lap time to what's going on around them to who's the fastest car on the track, and the obvious thing a spotter is needed for letting you know what cars are on the inside, who's on the outside, and who is around you to make sure you don't make contact with either of them. And then there are the rare circumstances where drivers will have an actual friend, a teammate that's over the top of the box, giving them actual spotter information in that moment. You know, if you have a real-life teammate that's giving you the info, you could hear 4 wide, but even then, Moreno, knowing that he was 4 abreast, I think he had nothing to do with the initial situation that got him involved. It was just slight contact between Herb and Muscarella, and that happens at about 190 miles an hour, maybe a bit more than that in the midst of the draft as you're going head-on into turn 1. So I'm sure all these drivers knew what situation they were in going into the corner and knew they were 4 abreast. Just didn't know how much exact space that they had to the next car. So it creates one of our biggest crashes of the night. We will reset things at lap number 87, and we are still in the midst of stage number 2. Mind you, we go the final 53 laps of distance till lap number 153 for the end of our final stage of the race. Lawson Peel took home stage number 1. He's going to be on the outside of the front row as we get to the green flag restart. And how impressive, Francisco, has Jaden Porter been from the first 2 weeks? We know how quick he was at Dover. That's a track that he's had so much success at before. Tonight in Michigan, it has been a very similar story. Not the outstanding car of the field for sure, because the racing has been so close, but Porter has been able to keep himself in the fight no matter what, and he will have discretion and control as Barney the Flagman will raise the green once more, coming down to the final 70-ish under laps to go. Green flag in the air and a early jump from Porter. Green flag from Michigan.
And to answer your question there, he's been pretty impressive, but this is also what you and I come to expect of the driver of the 91. He is a 4-wide champion on Wednesday nights. He is the regular season champion for this season and one of the championship contenders for that series in this current active season. So the fact that he was able to join, get the win at Dover, and it's been so far contentious here through the first 87, not a shock to us. He is someone that is very capable of taking the fight to Lawson Peel and has come out on top on occasions, and he is looking to try and do the same thing here on Sunday night.
And it's been more of a question of who can stop Lawson Peel. You know, the 3 race wins to kick off the season. He hasn't won a race since Road America, but even then, he only has 2 finishes outside of the top 10 this season, so it's one of full consistency no matter if he's at the checkered flag first or not. And he swings down low with a unorthodox line in turns 1 and 2, but he lunges under in enough time to steal the race lead away. Cedric Hunter will look to the inside in the battle for P2. There's the block dealt by Peel to turn 3.
And you know what I noticed in this top 5 is that there are multiple Drinker Bros Racing cars working their way to the front. So for Cedric Hunter and Jaden Porter, they're basically going to have to work together against Drinking Bros Racing because those guys are not going to help them against Lawson Peel.
And they have been fiery here at the start of this race. We saw them in the top 10 through the main pack, and they stayed there to get stage points at the end of lap number 50, but now they've got to deal with the Kenwood Chevrolet. Look at the move, middle 3 wide by Chris Progar for TOW Racing. He'll get it to the side of Banks. They save it down the straightaway.
You see, that's more like it when you make the contact. You just bounce off one another, and they're able to hang on to that one. Lose a bit of time to the front 3 cars in that situation, but they stay 3 wide. Hunter on the bottom, trying to clear for position, but it's going to be the teammates up top once again trying to pull through, and Steven Stempian finds himself in the top 10 again.
It's the first time that we call Chris Progar's name all night long, and with Stempian's mistake to not come down pit road for tires earlier on in the race, well, he's back in things again with Chris Cabot on the outside. Cedric Hunter has fallen off a cliff over the last several laps, has let the field blow by from the outside about 2 laps in a row, and now he'll be at the bottom of nearly 3 wide again. Progar going to be at the bottom of Steven Stempian. The fight for 5th continuous to turn 3.
Porter has been caught up now by Brennan Banks as Stempian flies his way up into 4th. He's side by side with Eric Schaefer for that position right now, as you see the onboard from Banks. And Jaden Porter right now blinking, unable to really see him on the racetrack. He reappears now, and he's actually side by side with Peel. If we can get a good view of him, he reappears, and he's actually in front of the 9.
And he made the move down low in turn 3, but you can't really see him for a second. Now he's here, now he's not, but he makes the move. And in a magical sequence, Jaden Porter invisibly gets to the race lead. But here comes the pressure once again from the outside, and I think Porter had to lay off there out of turn 2. Doesn't know where the rest of the field is with the internet connectivity issues, and I don't know if that's going to persist for Porter, but he's going to lay everyone back on the inside lane. Banks, Schaefer will take away second and third down the straightaway, and Peel with the largest lead we've seen him had, at least for a couple of seconds. There it is, back to turn 1, and the onboard look from the 3-time winner.
By the sound of it in the voice chat, it sounds like he's being told to lay over as to not potentially cause some kind of issues for everybody.
And that's a solid call from race control. If you've got unstable internet to the point where the field doesn't know really where you are over the course of the race, they will command you to lay off and let the entire field through. So Porter will lose out on the fight for the lead, and while Stepien will kick the fire in again, he'll look to the bottom side. No help from the back. Those are all Drinking Bros Racing Chevrolets, 4 of them in the top 5 right now to turn 1.
And how about that recovery for Steven Stepien? He's in the midst of this Drinking Bros Racing mess, but we know he's going to be aggressive no matter what. As he gets a little bit tight on the bottom, almost gets up into the 5 car. He's going to have to tuck in line, and he's going to have 2 more Drinking Bros Racing cars behind him, and Eric Schaefer and the 8 of Kip Beasley, but a teammate of his and Chris Progar gets into the back of Eric Schaefer for a bit of a moment there. Entering turn 3, Schaefer sideways throughout the corner. Kip Beasley will jump up to the outside of Schaefer off of turn 4. They'll do battle as now Cedric Hunter finds himself 3 wide with a 3 car all the way to the inside. And Schaefer will have to tuck in line behind Kip Beasley, but now Stepien has a little bit of breathing room behind him to try and see what he can do with the top 2.
Great look from the rear-end camera of Steven Stepien's Chevrolet as Schaefer will get bodied out of the way, not once but twice in a turn 2 by Chris Progar. Very aggressive move as they were coming up the racetrack. And here comes Brandon Banks on the look inside for the lead. Help from Stepien gets him lunged ahead, but Stepien will look under. He'll try to swing the hook to the bottom end of the speedway. They'll make contact again. How about maybe nearly 4 wide? Cedric Hunter could have made a move to the inside. He'll help Stepien in his tracks, and it is door-to-door for the lead to the stripe at lap 95.
6 remaining in the stage, and it's very much picked up the intensity like it did at the end of stage 1. And there's Cedric Hunter continue to try to fight up there, Category 5 Esports. He knows that he doesn't have a teammate up there as Steven Stepien almost puts Brandon Banks into the outside wall, but here comes Lawson Peel to help Eric Schaefer on the bottom. It's a bunch of Drinking Bros Racing cars. I think if you're Cedric Hunter and Steven Stepien, you kind of have to work with each other because of the amount of teammates that Drinking Bros Racing have to work with here in this instance, as now Stepien gets the outside of Banks.
It is 2 versus a tightened group of GBR Chevrolet. Stepien will take the lead, but not for long to the stripe. Brandon Banks will get him back on the side draft, and Schaefer is there nearly to help now. Peel looks to the bottom, and they were 3 wide for a moment as they were coming into turn 1. And you got to be really careful if you are these DBR Chevrolets. The last thing you want to do is junk each other in the final few for the stage win. Lawson Peel took control in the final laps of Stage 1 to get his 2nd career DTH Cup Series Stage W. And now Stepien in the search for stage win number 5. But he'll back out in turn 3, and Banks will maintain control, coming to 3 to go.
Looks like Jaden Porter's internet has only just now gotten better contact off of turn 4. It appears it involves Timothy Stubblefield. Cedric Hunter, they're spinning through the infield.
And a bad break for Stubblefield. There's the yellow flag. And the Daytona winner found himself basically into the victory lane area of the racetrack at the bottom end of the tri-oval. And Cedric Hunter, who had put himself in the midst of the action, is going to come home 20th. After that spin, stage will finish here. And for the first time, Brandon Banks will call himself a stage winner.
And that, yeah, Brandon Banks gets the stage win in a shortened fashion there. So, and that means that Alex Muscarella gets the final position in the stage points. So, wow, really, really clutch effort there. Obviously had the help with the spinning cars there to be able to take the position away. But a really good opportunity, good moment there for the 48 to get those points. Same for Chris Gabon, Robert A. Moyer Jr. in the 7th position.
And a drive by Muscarella that's worthy of note. Of course, he had stayed out on older tires. He's got 14-lap older tires than the race leader coming to the stage end in Brandon Banks. So a great job by Muscarella to stay alive, to sustain over the long run. And we'll try to get a better look at exactly what fell to get Stubblefield and Hunter involved in our most recent caution coming out of turn 4. So they're approaching the final few laps of the opening stage, and it's hard nose racing between these guys. Stubblefield at the top of the speedway, that bright pink Toyota Camry for Category 5 Esports of Hunter. And there was already contact as Hunter went up the racetrack to try and side draft Stubblefield. They make the side-to-side contact, and it's exactly what you mentioned, Francisco, with the side draft that gets the drivers into each other. And obviously incidental contact between the two, no real of effort at trying to get at each other, nor is it any intention by either side, but it just unfortunate.
I have an interesting point to bring up here, Kenneth. Looks like iRacing itself has decided to score Timothy Stubblefield in 9th because he went up there and sat behind the 8th place car. So that actually means Alex Muscarella probably will not get stage points if the admins decide to stand by the decision of allowing the 94 to keep that position. I don't know why it let him get up there and not Cedric Hunter, because they both went for the spill on the inside of the racetrack, but the sim itself decided to give Stubblefield the top 10 position back, so I'm not sure what the call is going to be there. As you see the race off pit road, Justin Henry stays out, and Jason Anderson, with I believe a 2-tire call, is going to make his way through to the 2nd place position. So what do the admins, what do you think is going to happen there?
I don't know. I mean, that's going to be a tough call. I'd say that if they are going by drivers involved in incidents not being able to get stage points, I'd say that they will give Muscarella the benefit of the doubt, but it's that kind of weird iRacing timing loop situation where they will record a driver in a certain position when the yellow flag comes out, even if they're spinning or they're crashing, and it gets them obviously at the back end of the field. You know, we've seen a couple times where somebody spins or crashes from, let's say, the top 5, yellow flag comes out almost instantaneously, and they will come back up the field because iRacing scores them still in that position, or maybe 1 or 2 lost. So I don't know if they will consider this, race control will, for stage points, or whether they would just go by the book and let iRacing decide who's in the top 10. That will give the Daytona winner an upper edge in the points, as Jason Anderson comes down pit road. I was about to mention he did not take tires or fuel on his stop, so he has to second guess his decision. He will come in and give Brendan Banks the proverbial lead from pit road with Justin Hendry to stay out. I don't know, that's a weird situation, but given how Stubblefield is just now in the top 10 off of pit road, I think they may just let this one slide, but we will have to get official confirmation from race control and any reviews post-race, and I'm sure they will deal the points out accordingly when this is all said and done. But that's a very peculiar situation. Just spinning in the middle of the racetrack, you lose 1 or 2 spots, and that's when the yellow flies, and that's where they freeze the field.
Yeah, we'll see what race control decides to do, because at the end of the day, that's going to obviously affect the stage points and the playoff situation. Looks like Warren Keith back down pit road again, so he's going to drop some more track position. But the odd part is just the fact that it put Cedric Hunter back wherever he was able to rejoin the field, and not Timothy Stubblefield, and both of them were spinning about the exact same time, so they have their work cut out for them. We'll see. There's definitely going to be some kind of decision made there, because I don't think that'll be the last time this season that we'll see that kind of situation played out, and you obviously would like to have it in place in case we get something like that in the playoffs, because if there's anything you and I know about leagues, Kenneth, is that some way, somehow, every situation manages to rear its head come playoff time.
Yeah, it has been insane when you reset the points of the field and let them go at it for a championship. They will do anything possible, but focus back in on the final stage. Here from Michigan, 53 laps to go at the stripe, and it's Justin Hendry who stays out on older tires by a margin of 14 laps. Here comes Banks. Look on the outside to 1, and it may just be a very casual pass for the lead. He'll have his teammate Pio to help. Brandon Banks back to the lead off turn 2.
And there's Steven Stempien now, works his way up into 3rd. Keith Easley finds himself up into 4th, and Chris Progar remains up in the front with Robert A. Moyer Jr. and Timothy Stubblefield all around. So we'll see what the 2 teammates for the Droppin' the Hammah racing team are able to do against Drinking Bros Racing.
And first time we call Robert A. Moyer Jr.'s name out tonight, the owner of Freaky Fast Broadcasting, as here comes Pio to the inside. Look for the lead, and just like we've seen before, that inside car needs a good jump into the braking zone of turn 1. We've seen that very interesting line that Peel uses to get right up in front of the secondary car. This time a little routine through that first seam. And Brandon Banks will give up second, stepping into the fight with Kip Easley for the third spot. And how about Kip Easley, who had fallen off of the draft in the opening run of this race, just missed out on stage 1 points because he had fallen behind the likes of Justin Urban Company through the top 12. And the Cheddar's Chevrolet has put himself right in the thick of things through the top 5. The onboard look from the Missouri native.
And right behind him is the Robert A. Moore Jr. machine, as Alex Muscarella now makes a move to the inside of the 18, trying to take that spot away. The Mozzarella man making some moves to the inside. Same thing with the 7 of Chris Progar, who lunges himself up this a second.
How about the momentum from Alex Muscarella, the way he was able to come back on the old set of tires, being able to put himself near the top 10, and for right now, we don't know if he is credited with that final stage point for stage 2. Well, you can imagine he's got a lot of momentum on his side now that he's on a level playing field with everyone else, and they are putting Banks in the dust. Stepien finds his way to third, and Chris Progar takes his look as we're nearly 4 wide back there for the top 10.
4 wide once again. The last time we saw that, it did not work out, but see the 92 willing to give everybody as much room as possible, as there's going to be some contact with him and Justin Hendry, and they're able to work that one out.
And Jason Anderson, boy, had to save that Chevrolet to the inside of the racetrack and nearly got into Hendry to bring out the yellow, but he will keep himself up front in this pack. Jaden Porter will try and sling his way through without any trouble. Nearly contact. That's Talladega winner Craig Parks on the very outside, and it is a hornet's nest to the top 10. 3 wide again.
And now Stepien finds himself up in the third with Muscarella. And how about James Kunkel in the top 5? First call of him in the top 5 here tonight for the 42 machine.
And we saw him up front on an old tire call. Him and his teammate Parker Bland had stayed out on older sets of Goodyear Eagles, and I'm not sure whether they have an extra set to their bag or not, but they are putting themselves in the top 10 with a chance at decent points to the end. This is the heart-wrenching part of this battle, is that anything could go wrong, while up front Chris Progar has taken the lead by 2/10 over Lawson Peel. He was right on the back bumper of the Columbus, Mississippi native. And for one of the many times we've seen in 2025, Progar will lead them back to the stripe, shades of Auto Club from earlier this year.
And Kunkel jumped up to the outside of the 88 of Stepien and finds himself up at the third now, as Kip Easley gets the rear bumper of the 88 and almost makes contact with the 48 of Alex Muscarella. Timothy Stubblefield now jumps to the outside of Kip Easley. Wasn't able to hold the spot there. Some intense racing inside this top 10.
And there's a look from Stubblefield, what he has to see from the front end of his Ford Mustang. And saw the seas part, and he'll make contact with Kip Easley, who will go sliding in turn 3, and he will save it as the field goes by. What a job by Kip Easley. Oh
what
my.
a save. That's we learned that from Ethan Fonseca definitely earlier in this race, and we'll try and get a look of it to see exactly the exact situation of what occurred there. It happened on the back straightaway, and it looked pretty similar to what happened to the 87 earlier in this one. The 94 just gets into the left rear of the 8 car going down the back straightaway. See the replay here on the right side of your screen. Here's the 87 driving into turn 3, or the 8, and there's the contact with the 94. Sends him sideways, nearly spins it, saves it again. Wow.
And what a job by the rest of the field to get away without making more contact with the troubled Easley. And while Easley drops all the way back through the field, he will recover just inside of the top 25. He ends up 22nd by that near spin with the contact from Stubblefield to the inside. Meanwhile, here comes Porter. Look on the bottom. That Trackhouse Kubota Chevrolet tries to look under the Makita Chevrolet from the outside of the racetrack, and James Kunkel slides himself into the top 3 as Chris Progar falls all the way back to 5th. And how about again 3 wide? Muscarella through the middle.
And the 42 trying to hold up top, but he gets cleared by those two. What he's going to do is push that 48 into the 9 to try and push himself up in the lead, and there goes Muscarella to the bottom now.
And Muscarella, who took control of this race not too long ago on 14-lap old tires, says, I want a bit more now that I'm on the same stage as you guys. And it is a lunge down to turn 2. Progar is going to bang off James Kunkel as they're coming 3 wide into the second corner. And they will keep things straight. Porter has been on the bottom end of these things more often than not. He'll get a push from Jason Anderson. Now more contact.
Progar goes up. Progress goes up and door checks the 42 up in the middle 3 and 4. Porter goes to the bottom and clears both of them in turns 3 and 4.
And it is getting physical like Dua Lipa here at these late stages here from Michigan with 44 to go at the line. And it's James Kunkel who stays in put. That is a long line of cars on the outside. They follow through with Stubblefield being the lone man alongside Jaden Porter to work things through that middle seam. And Porter now wants to look at third. He'll look to the inside this time by on Stepien. No push now. And there goes Progar to the outside. And just what we've seen all night long, Francisco, you make the move to the bottom and you're at the mercy of everyone in the field. Look at Stepien with the save. Off the bumper of Progar.
Oh, and now the 92 goes sliding up, gets into the 42 again. Those two have continued to make contact as this run has gone on.
And they have not let each other up throughout the course of this race. It has been so much fun to watch. And from last week's theatrical stage number 2, where we saw at least 5 to 6 cars in the realm of half a second, right now, top 6 by 6/10.
It definitely plays more into the natural style of the Michigan Speedway, if you will. Just so much drafting. There goes Peel to the bottom.
Go to the inside, look for the lead on Alex Muscarella, who will play the defense from the middle. It usually takes an entry of the corner for Peel to clear and away, get the top spot. It may result to turn 1. As long as Peel can stay there, they found a good gap back to Chris Progar, who will get this momentum off of turn number 4. And he'll try to get back at things. There's Porter.
There goes Porter.
Down the bottom. He's going to go way down to the bottom of the opening seam. He'll surge down low, looking for a bit of double-end magic. He'll go to the inside of Progar in the battle for third.
And now Stempien's there to help Progar. They go side by side for the lead again. Peel with a great side draft effort on the 48. You expect him to go down and use that line that's worked for him in this race. Doesn't go all the way down there, but he does clear for the top position.
And now that you think of this final stage, of course, a little bit longer than what we saw in Stage 1 and Stage 2, but a stage nonetheless that does need at least one pit stop to get to the end. And in the blink of an eye, it became only one DBR Chevrolet in the top 5 when there used to be 4. If you're Lawson Peel, are you a little worried that there's a bit of lack of help? Because DTH has second, third, the affiliate teammate in TOW Racing's Chris Progar, and then Jaden Porter, who's just that lone man fending for himself on the inside of the racetrack, with Anderson and Stubblefield now going at it for about 6th and 7th place.
I think if any of them are not concerned about having to do a solo fight, it's that guy, Lawson Peel. We know what he's able to do on his own just by pure racecraft. I think he's going to be just fine having to race against these guys on his own. As you see side by side for the 4th spot is Chris Progar and Jaden Porter, as now Muscarella and Stempien have kind of pulled a half a second on that pair. They go into turn 1, and the 94 Stubblefield, that's the first time I've seen someone go all the way up to the outside long corner entry, and is going to remain in front of the 92 for the 6th position, but Porter does get clear of Progar for 4th.
So he will stay up there, and I think this is the calmest we've seen this pack from the run that we've seen. There's Muscarella now trying to hold off his teammate in Stempien, and almost a mirror image of what we saw in the first stage at Dover. While Moreno had led from the pole, these two were the ones to come up through the field early. It was a bit of a interesting decision for Muscarella nonetheless. He had burned off his Goodyear Eagles when the run persisted through the green flag stretch, and Stepien had been a little more conservatory in that sense. And he will get to the inside. The battle for second continues, and that remains at about 0.3 of a second behind Lawson Peel, who will see some elbow room get his way while Jaden Porter picks up on the 48. He'll try to dive to the inside in the look for that final podium position. He will have the spot entering turns 3 and 4. And this is where we end up, Francisco. Same 3 that we've seen. You know, 2 of them fighting for most of the campaign, and the tertiary, the hotshot new driver, looking to make an impact as they're 3 wide for position inside the top 5.
And a new driver has popped his way up into the top 10. How about the number 4 of Jason Hastings up in the 9th spot?
And we haven't seen that in-and-out Chevrolet for most of the evening, but one of those Drinkin' Bros Racing cars to step into the top 10. And I think almost everyone at Drinkin' Bros Racing has had a shot inside the front-running group, other than maybe Craig Parks. Look at Jason Anderson making the move on the inside of Banks.
Oh, more
That
contact
one
with
cut it
Progar
close.
in the 42. Those two have just continued to make contact with each other. The 7 and 42. They have not. I'm not sure if something happened or not, but they have continued to make contact throughout this 3rd stage.
Is that just a product of the aggressive racing, Francisco, or is that some kind of personal message they're sending to each other? I don't know if that's either them getting tired of fighting with each other, or it's just the nature of how aggressive they've been, considering how long they've raced against each other on iRacing, maybe give or take 5 years.
Maybe, but I'm not behind the wheel to be able to tell that. I know from my own personal experiences, sometimes you get tired of racing a certain guy, especially if you feel that the way you've been raced has been unjust or has just made no sense. And I know many of our viewers that have the sim thing probably attest to that kind of a feeling. So when you get tired, sometimes you just make the contact just to say, to hell with this, I just want to get by you.
Well, for right now, the waves will settle, and James Kunkel will follow suit in 7th. How about the look at 5th place? Cedric Hunter, the Ottawa, Ontario Canadian, has really come back in this race. We saw in the moment where he was involved in a bit of an accident down the front straightaway, got a bunch of damage to the front end of his Toyota Camry, and we almost for certain thought that Hunter's race would be done, but he's been able to come back and slowly work his way through the top 10 over one of our longest green flag runs of the night, nearing 20 laps at the stripe now, and Hunter has put himself in a position to get back to the front and try and win this race. Remember, he had led a ton of laps at Auto Club Speedway earlier on in the campaign, and while Peel only led 19, the fight between himself and Hunter was very close until those final 10 laps where Peel had pulled away, but Hunter is putting in laps a 10th quicker than everyone else in the top 5, so he's someone to watch for at the tail end of this run.
Austin Peel right now has the biggest lead that we've seen anybody really get out to in this race. He has about 6/10 on Steven Stempien, and though Stempien has Porter right behind him, it doesn't appear that the 88, at least right now, has speed to just close up the gap to that 9 car, at least not right now. He's going to need Porter to either give him some bumps down the straightaway to really closing that gap, but we do know if the 88 is able to get closer to the 9, that draft should get all that much better, and it should make it easier for him to close up the gap, as there's a car just in front of this group. I believe, can't quite make out who that is. That could be the number 3 machine. Actually, it's not. That looks like it's a different car, but it's a lap car that nonetheless has just pulled up behind the 9 car and is looking to overtake him for position. That's the 92.
Yeah, that's Jason Anderson. We saw how good of a race he was having earlier on tonight, and things have turned for the worse. Anderson right now, the first car lap down in 24th. As we're going to look at our DNF list as they stand, Eric Schaefer is out of tonight's race, 21 laps down. Ethan Fonseca Moreno, we saw him go hard into the wall in turn 1, ends up 28th. Justin Erb with the constant crash with Moreno in that same corner is 29th. Colin Forrester in 30th, and Brad Fulham in 31st. So a total of 5 cars have DNF'd here from Michigan, and a ton of heavy hitters involved in that as well. Now I gotta ask you, Francisco, we're going into this long green flag run with 32 laps to go. It'll probably be 31 when we get to the start-finish line now. And you are anticipating at least one more stop. Are you hoping that there's a yellow that flies somehow soon, or where would you start to plan for a pit road stop at some point in this race, given how separated the field is right now?
Well, clearly the 92 already thought about it because he just made a pit stop a couple laps ago, so that tells you where his mind is. But as far as the leaders themselves, they know that they're going to be close. We saw in stage 1, they were able to get to the finish, and then Fonseca was the only one that ran out. But the fact that he did is enough cause for concern for some of these guys to wonder, if we do go green, you could run out. Because if you remember, stage 1 had that really early caution flag, and you're able to save some fuel then. So if they don't get any assistance of yellow flag laps to really slow down and save some fuel, they're, I would say, 1, maybe 2 laps short. And if you're this guy, Lawson Peel, well, even though it's not Daytona or Talladega, you do burn more fuel there.
You definitely do, and you don't have a place in the draft, so you can't lay off the gas pedal when you're down these long straightaways to save a couple miles an hour that you would use on full throttle and just maybe be 75%, 85%. And over the course of the run, at super speedways, you've talked about that makes a big difference in fuel strategy when inevitably you have to come down to the pit lane. And like you mentioned, a great point, in the early caution in stage 1, stage 2 featured the same phenomenon, right? We had an early yellow, drivers had the chance to save some fuel, and then with the chaos that caught everybody up at the back end of the stage, it brought to the end, that run. Everyone came down pit road, and there were no concerns. We've gotten the first 24 laps of this final stage green. We haven't had an early yellow yet to let the drivers come in and save a bit of fuel or come down for a splash to get to the end. and the checkered flag. So you got to really think about what is at situation here between these drivers. There's the onboard look from the race leader. Steven Stepien has caught him up, so it will be a battle for the lead as they arise out of turn number 4. The Methuen, Massachusetts native wants to look at the bottom, and he wants the clean air. He'll look to the bottom this time for the lead. Turn 1, will he have it?
Doesn't drive it in super deep, but Peel's going to carry the momentum on the outside. You see further back, Jason Anderson, the lapper, racing Porter, so it's not going to allow Porter to make a move. Anderson gets clear, but how does he affect this battle?
Well, Anderson is on fresh tires, so he could very well play a big factor in this fight, and he will help Stepien get to the race lead, and he'll surge over and try to unlap himself. Remember, he is the lucky dog. Should we get a yellow flag if Anderson stays a lap behind these leaders, and that got close with Lawson Peel. Jaden Porter will give him a push, won't look for the inside. In second, they have the common goal of catching up. Anderson will push Stepien to the front, 2 by 2 entering turn 1.
Porter wanted to go to the outside, but the 92 was there, and it resulted in Peel making the move to the bottom of the 88. Gets clear for now. Stepien will fight back on the outside, though, so they remain door-to-door for the top position. And here comes the 892 once again playing a factor in this, but I will say what I've noticed in this run, the 45 of Hunter cleared the 48 of Muscarella and is caught up to this top 3.
And it's definitely paid wonders for him that these guys have been fighting as hard as they have since Anderson got into the foreground. And here comes Stepien to the inside look again. Anderson's going to follow him through to the bottom, so it will indeed help Hunter stay in touch with Jaden Porter 1, but keep up with the leaders number 2. He's got one of the fastest cars of the racetrack, and like we noted as he was catching up to Muscarella, he was about a 10th quicker than all of these guys in the top running 3. Now he's matched out at about a 40.3. These guys have carved off at least a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds down this green flag run from their fastest laps of the race. And Hunter will push Porter through to third. Stepien will find the pressure from Lawson Peel, and Jason Anderson says, job done. He unlaps himself, entering the final just about couple as Jaden Porter comes down pit road.
Maybe this might start the pit road sequence, especially with him being up there for a position. We saw the 92, just how easy he was able to drive by on the outside. And now that we have just about 25-ish laps to go in this race, you could definitely split this and make some ground up, especially if the 88 and 9 continue to race side by side. Hunter was closing in on both of them, and it's actually a 3-way battle for the top spot now, as there you see it with Muscarella just ahead, who appears to have also made a pit stop.
Yeah, he came down about the same lap that Jaden Porter did, just a little further behind the road, so he stays in front of the leaders to keep himself on the lead lap, and it's Peel, Stepien, and Hunter, your front-running 3 with 25 laps to go from Michigan. And the question is, when do these 3 come down for the stops, and do they all come in at the same time? Hunter through the middle.
You saw Progar exiting pit road there, so he made a stop as well. Jaden Porter now merging back onto the racetrack, getting up to speed. He's ahead of Jason Anderson, and you can see there by about a second or so, and he stays on the lead lap. So Porter won't drop a lap here to the race leader. So now, if he can put in some good lap times, he can probably gain some time on the 9 and the 88 and even the 45. So I think what these 3 might try to do is either stretch it all the way or wait for a caution flag, since we know they can run to really close to the end of the checkered flag of this race. So considering the gap they have back to P4 Brandon Banks, about 5.5 seconds, it wouldn't be totally outrageous to suggest that one of them might try to save the fuel.
Here's a trio on pit road. That's Stubblefield, Hastings, and Kip Easley that put themselves on the pit lane as the right side of your screen gives the look at where Jaden Porter is as he's recycling through the field. He's 21st, and he should gain a couple of spots now that he's coming out of turn 4, and there are more drivers that will follow suit. And Peel looks to be a little slow out of turn 4. This is the call to come in.
Yeah, there he is.
Hunter will follow him through. Stepien, the race leader, inside 25 to go, 23 at the stripe. Lawson Peel decides it's his time.
And let's see where he merges compared to Steven Stepien. We'll see if Stepien decides to bring it in this time or not. Peel into a stall, backs up a little bit. I'm not sure if you noticed that, Kenneth, even though he wasn't over the line, he backed up.
Yeah, it looked like he had overshot his pit box, so maybe that could cost him the 10th of a second. And we've seen on pit road how big of a difference that makes, especially when the whole field is down there, let alone on green flag stops. 2-tire call from Peel at about 9.2 seconds, or 9.9. Hunter will elect for 4, so that will keep them out of range, at least for now.
See what this blend looks like.
And as
Porter's already ahead.
And as Stepien remains in control, there goes Porter through.
And the lead is continuing to close or increase between them, so it does look like 2 tires has been the call for Porter, Peel, and most of everybody. So we heard them talk about how tight the car is. Guess what? PBR, especially with the addition of Steven Maggio, they have been increasingly likely to take 2 tires, and especially in situations where you get a tight handling race car. And like tonight, they decided to take 2 tires, give yourself the better handling, and you know you don't need all the fuel in the world. So a shorter, quicker pit stop guarantees you the position. And now Jaden Porter has about 3 or so seconds on Lawson Peel while he has to do battle with the 40 of Alex Mascarella.
And remember, there are still a bunch of cars that have not come down pit road. It goes all the way back to 13th place Richard Modric, who most of them are on 32 to 33 laps on their stint. Leader Steven Stepien is in. That will hand the command of the field off to Chris Gabeau. And much like Peel, Francisco, there was a slight mistake entering the pit lane, and the pit box for Steven Stepien had to kick it in reverse for about a split second, and he will lose just a bit of time. Porter will try and keep up with the rest of this field, as here's the battle theoretically for the lead. Ashley, Gabeau, and Banks all within at least 0.3 of a second, and none of them have elected to come down pit road this time by. I think you mentioned, Francisco, the front guys probably hoping for a yellow. I think these guys are the ones desperately praying for something to come about.
Yeah, the 91 of Jaden Porter is hoping that this goes green. He could definitely see this strategy through. I would say that about the biggest thing is that Lawson, Peel, and Mascarella have to draft the distance of one another to close the gap to Porter. Because Porter's running by himself right now, nobody around him on the racetrack. And you look back to Steven Stepien, he's actually lost considerable amount of time. I think he's still sitting in his pit box, Kenneth. Looks like some kind of pit penalty here on the 88.
Oh no, and he is a lap down, 49.2 seconds on his stop. It may just be pit road speeding. Oh no.
Just the bad luck continues for him.
And it's been rough. I mean, mentioning New Hampshire, where he was so excited for that race, his hometown event on this Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season, and since then, there has not been as many positive moments as we would hope for Steven Stepien. Very strong race cars week in and week out, and obviously a no-doubter to be at the front of these fields at the end. But the mistakes have hit him, and they've hit him hard. And so Stepien will fall through a lap down. He will have to hope that he beats Casey Knighton and Justin Hendry to the lucky dog position. And up the road from the leader, Clifton Ashley, is Justin Hendry's Toyota Camry, which should get him to unlap himself at this juncture of the race. So it's only Casey Knighton that Stepien has to beat. Ashley, Gabeau, and Banks, your current running top 3. And at the moment, 10 cars yet to pit.
Jaden Porter's about 18 seconds behind Ashley right now. So if you're the 76 and the 25 and the 5, you've ran a slower pace. A couple of them have had draft for most of this run. If you continue to run the pace you're at right now, you can probably tune these last couple laps and not have to worry too much about the pace you run. You could probably save the fuel to get there, but you see pulling off to the side is the 76. So we'll see. Somebody in this group is definitely going to stretch it, and they actually might be able to make that happen. So I wouldn't rule it out yet, but we'll see what kind of time difference Porter's able to make up. He now has about 1.7 seconds back to Mascarella, as him and Peel have used their draft help of not just each other, but also some probably lap car assistance to close the gap on Jaden Porter, who has had multiple laps just by himself, nobody around him to use the draft to pull away.
And listen in on Chris Gabeau.
Oh yeah, he's definitely trying it. You can hear just pure quiet in that race car. No, your eyes do not, or your ears don't deceive you. This is not a Formula E car. This is a NASCAR Cup Series race car with a clutch in.
And you got to imagine, if Gabeau is saving and he's slowing down, is it the same for Brandon Banks? Both of them are clicking off nearly the same lap time, and they are bleeding a bit of the gap to Stephen Harlow, who, by the way, one of the most relentless drivers of this race, had nearly the car completely torn up earlier on tonight. And he has recovered and is looking to find a breakthrough in the clouds from this strategy here that gets him in the podium.
Well, I think Banks is also on that same strategy. Not only does he have Gabeau's draft, but if Gabeau's clutching it and running that much slower and Banks isn't making a move, it's definitely because he's thinking the exact same thing. He is trying to save the fuel to make it to the end of the race. And why not for any of these guys for them to try this kind of strategy? If you just run in the same path as the leaders, it's kind of what Larry McReynolds tries to say, if you follow the leaders, you follow the leaders. And for them, they clearly didn't have the pace to go up there and just outrun them and just go up there and pass them. So try something else to get you either track position or try a different strategy altogether. If they're able to get to the end, great. If a caution comes out, you could see a good portion of the field make their way back into pit road, and that could hand them the track position they need to battle for the win in a short shoot.
And you got to balance out the possibilities that could happen here in these final 15, because it's a 12.3 second gap from the race leader of KBueno back to Jaden Porter, who is the car on the undercut strategy from the main group of leaders that includes Lawson Peel, includes Cedric Hunter, and Steven Stempian. He's just gone by Warren Kyle Keith for 7th place, and he's now 12.1 seconds behind from KBueno's Toyota Camry. And while him, Banks, Harlow, and a bunch of the others are electing to stay out this long praying for the yellow, I don't know, Francisco, given the distance here in Michigan and just how much time Porter is starting to gain on a per lap basis, there may not be enough time.
Well, it depends. Are they saving to make sure they can get to the end, or are they still saving because they're unsure if they can? Because I think if they can ensure themselves the end of the race and then push, I think that's what they're trying to aim for right now. As you see Harlow making his way into the lane right now. 9 seconds is still a pretty big gap, especially since they have the draft of each other. I wouldn't say it's totally unrealistic that at any point they could decide to go ahead and push. We know that 50 laps was able to be done in the first stint of the race, and they definitely have probably saved the laps required, especially with the caution laps at the end of Stage 2. I will say the part that makes this interesting is the fact that Stage 2 ended early, so maybe that is what's throwing the wrench into this. There you see Parker Bland racing the 5 of Brandon Banks. That's currently for P2 on the road. She'll tuck in for 3rd. But also, important to note, Lawson Peel, 0.8 of a second behind Jaden Porter. He's slowly continuing to close that gap, and he no longer has the help of Muscarella. It's a mano-a-mano fight between Porter and Peel.
And they will try to decide it amongst themselves while these leaders play it out for the lead. Parker Bland surges through, and it appears she's not saving as much as KBueno and Banks are at this juncture of the race with 12 laps to go. Is there a sign that Bland can make it, or can make it barely? Last time by, they were about a full second slower and plus more from Jaden Porter and Lawson Peel, who have the freshest tires of the field, even though they've only taken right sides. And so it's Bland up front, coming to 11 laps to go, and the biggest question is there a yellow first of all, but secondary, is there enough time for Porter and Peel to make an imprint?
Well, they're now 6.5 behind. They've been closing in by about a second each lap, maybe almost 2 seconds on each particular lap, so it's definitely possible for them to get there before the end of the race. So I think that's why Parker Bland decided she was going to try and push now, because the last thing you want to do is save fuel, have fuel at the end, and you got passed for the win if you're aiming to win the race. So at some point you just decide to say you're going to go for it, and if you run out, you run out.
So it's Bland clinging on to hope. Left side of your screen, and then the right side of your screen, that potential battle for the proverbial race lead, where Peel had come in a couple laps later than Jaden Porter did from the undercut strategy. Both of them, by the way, on 2 fresh Goodyear Eagles from the right side of the race car. And so they are not on the full power of 4 fresh Eagles like Cedric Hunter is back in 9th place, but it's the chase to Bland's machine, as she has left Brandon Banks and Chris KBueno in the dust. They remain saving, and they remain slowing down. 42.277 for Banks, and that leaves Eric Stewart, the Canadian, to move up into P2 for the first time tonight, coming to the final 10 laps to go, and the gap has closed in. It's 4.5 seconds this time.
And Porter could have a fight with Peel on his hands right now, because here goes Peel looking to the inside.
And that's for the net race lead, near contact in turn 1. And while Peel has
Porter
had
sideways,
the strongest car of the night by far, Porter has never given up, and he's been possibly second best. Down the back straightaway, they'll catch a bit of lap traffic, and that's where they'll start to creep in on the likes of KBueno, Banks, and Eric Stewart. Parker Bland is up the road by at least 3 seconds. They'll get by Stewart in 3 and 4, who goes right near his teammate. And now there's one car to beat in, Brandon Banks.
And Porter nearly got into the outside wall. That was not ideal, but Porter was able to get by the traffic pretty decently enough to ward off any attack from Lawson Peel. Now both of them 3 seconds behind Parker Bland, with now 8 laps to go in this one. They could definitely get up to her before the checkered flag.
Parker Bland is hoping that she can make this one stick. or that a yellow flag will fly right at the end of this race. It'll be 7 laps to go next time, and the only thing separating Bland and Porter is 2.5 seconds. Bland's last start at Dover ended with 24th after a strong run ended short.
Peel's there.
And Peel wants the inside for the net race lead. He's going to try and have it. This time, 7 laps to go.
We'll see how hard Porter tries to fight this one as they work their way to turn 1. They're side by side for the position. They're almost making contact. Porter hanging on his door, does not want to give this one up.
And as we see it, as long as we don't see any late race drama between these two or anyone else on track, this is for the win. It is a second. They are faster than the race leader. And Peel sticks it on the inside, trying to make it happen, and he does. New net race leader, Lawson Peel, coming to 6 laps remaining.
And we'll see what Porter's able to do now in the draft. The biggest argument, Lawson Peel was able to drive his way up there without using draft up until he was within about a second behind Porter. But now that Porter's in the draft, considering that he's been pretty quick, can he do something with this? Or is he just done?
Well, remember, we've seen Porter fall
Oh, look how
back in the
tight he
draft
got.
not so long ago, and he still usually has a shot. But that exit off turn 2 might just be a killer. And it may make him reset and try again. That gap sits at about 0.4 of a second, and it is growing little by little. Porter will try and play catch up. Meanwhile, this is the battle for the lead, and it will be decided quickly. Parker Bland stayed out as long as she could. She'll try to stick it out to the end. Lawson Peel with the lead to 5 laps to go.
And now Porter will go to the inside of the 13 and get that position away. He's hoping that this can come back to him handling-wise, but it doesn't appear it would. He had 3 seconds on Lawson Peel, and miraculously, Lawson Peel was able to just drive his way through there, catch Porter, and get by him, all in a space of about 20 laps. Impressive stuff.
And it only feels like the chance for the win is drifting away for the Louisville, Kentucky native as he nearly gets the outside wall. And for the second straight 2-mile D-shaped oval race, we know at Auto Club just how strategic it got to the end, and it came down to 2. And Lawson had made the clutch pass in those final laps to stay up front in a caution-free ending to make it to what would be his first checkered flag of the year. He's put on 2 more since then, but since Road America, even though he's finished well, he has not been able to win. And tonight could be the recharging moment for the Columbus, Mississippi native. This time he will see 3 laps to go, and the lap time difference in favor of Peel by 1/10.
And here comes Parker Bland on the pit road. Looks like she's low on fuel.
Yeah, but she has gone the maximum distance of 51 laps. And there's no more that the UPS car can do. She will give up the position. Cedric Hunter steps into 3rd on the 4 Fresh Goodyear Eagles. He's about 4.5 seconds back of your front-running 2. And then Alex Muscarella, Kip Easley set to clinch in a top 5 tonight, as long as this one stays green.
Brandon Banks and Warren Kyle Keith. Banks on lap 52, Keith on 51. Both of them continue to stay out there on the racetrack, trying to stretch it out to the very end.
And you mentioned Chris Cabot, who came into tonight right on the cusp of this cut line at 16th. He has still come down, or not to come down pit road, 52 laps in the books. 13th is where he sits, hoping that the car can take him to the checkered flag. Final 4 miles from Michigan, and the gap sits at 6 car lengths. Cedric Hunter is too far back to make an effort for 2nd. And this could be cruise control mode for Lawson Peel, searching for win number 4 of the season, and just praying that he doesn't see a yellow from here to the white flag crossing.
Which is about a mile. For reference, it is about 1 mile between when you said that and the start-finish line. But Lawson Peel today, Kenneth, drove up through the field really quickly, and that's how you knew he was comfortable with this car and what he was able to do and what he was going to have in store for us. And as he takes this white flag, he looks to try and get a 4th victory, a hard-fought victory against somebody who he's going to race on Wednesday night at the sister racetrack and Auto Club and race for in that championship fight. But here on Sunday night, while we're still in the battle to get into that playoff stretch, this will be win number 4 of the season for Lawson Peel, and Jaden Porter was going to have to settle for 2nd.
After a couple of weeks of good racing, but no checkered flags, Lawson Peel instills confidence back in himself and instills the statement that he is the favorite for the championship. final run through turn number 4, and it's win number 4 from Lawson Peel, comes from Michigan. What a drive and a strategic masterclass. Got to give credit to both of those guys. Put on the 2 fresh Goodyear Eagles, and it takes them to the checkered.
And Brandon Banks, Kenneth, ran out of turn 4. He was sputtering coming towards the line to complete, get this, 54 laps on that tank of gas. And Warren Kalkeith, to his credit, also with an incredible last run there, 53 laps.
What an unbelievable stretch of the tank for those guys. And they are able to make it work for a top 10 finish for both of them. And we almost thought we would see a bit of theatrics at the end, but we end up green until the checkered. And it is a 2-tire call under the green flag run to get Lawson Peel his 4th win of this 2025 season. We haven't seen him cross the checkered flag first since Road America earlier this year. Well, now he's got a reignited spark. Lawson Peel, for the 4th time in 2025, will visit Droppin the Hammah victory lane as he takes this one from Michigan.
And just a reminder to everybody, one of our spectators, he's the only driver this season with multiple race wins to his name.
And that ends the streak of new race winners this season that started with Ross Harlow at New Hampshire, a race where Peel could have easily won that one. And then it went down to the next race at Talladega Superspeedway, which seemingly was in anyone's hands until Craig Parks took the win. Dover was another possible shot for Peel to get the W, but he reemerges tonight in great fashion. Lawson will park it into Gatorade Victory Lane. One of the good features about this old Michigan International Speedway scan, you can enter that victory circle there right on the front straightaway, and it's Lawson Peel who takes the W. The 2-tire call pans out, and nothing else goes wrong for the Columbus, Mississippi native as he will take the W, and we will get into our unofficial results here from the virtual Michigan International Speedway, where it is Lawson Peel, 4th career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win. Jaden Porter has an average finish of 1.5 right after tonight's 2nd place finish in his 2nd career race. Cedric Hunter had bounced back considerably from early race damage, and he ends up on the podium. Alex Muscarella had a strong car tonight. P4 for him at the end of this one, with Kip Easley for Drinkin' Bros Racing rounding out tonight's top 5. Brandon Banks went over 50 laps on his tank of fuel, and he was able to make it till the end in P6, 7th to Warren Kyle Keith, who also stretched it out until the very end. Chris Progar for TOW Racing gets a good field top 10. 9th place for the Daytona winner in Timothy Stubblefield. And Jason Anderson, a back-and-forth race for the car that we haven't seen make a race attempt in a little while, returns for P10.
P11 goes to Justin Hendry with Jason Hastings in a solid P12 position. Clifton Ashley finishes in 13th with Kevin Roy in the 14th spot. Casey Knighton will be in 15th. Stephen Harlow recovers into the 16th spot. The number 17 starts where he finishes in the 17th spot. Craig Parks. Parker Bland, after that late pit stop, will finish in 18th. Chris Cabot completed the final lap on pit road, which will score him a lap down as he had to be on the racetrack for that to count you on the lead lap. So he'll finish 19th still, just 1 lap down. Steven Stempian, after that issue of coming back down pit road and having that pit road speeding penalty late in that one, will finish in the 20th spot with more bad luck.
Back in 21st is Eric Stewart, and you're right, the story for Steven Stempian, it's been negative so far, and unfortunately the bad luck continues to get him. Hopefully he can rebound at the next race of the season at Pocono. Richard Modric falls a lap down in 22nd. Robert A. Moyer Jr. is 2 laps down in 23rd. And these are a bunch of the guys that perhaps were taken out of this race mostly, or were just on the back end of things at the end. James Kunkel 24th, Tony Kivet in the 12 car 25th, then Richard Swavely in P26, 27 to Eric Schaefer. Ethan Fonseca Moreno and Justin Erb, 2 very strong cars. They crashed out of the race into turn 1. A very considerable hit for both of them. And Colin Forrester will bring in the top 30. Brad Fulham in the 19 car, who was involved in our first caution of the night, parks it 150 laps down. Well, let's head to Droppin the Hammah victory lane, where we are joined for the 4th time this season by one and only Lawson Peel, who gets the win tonight with a strategic call. And I'm sure that theme was playing in the mind of Jaden Porter throughout those final laps as you took over the net race lead. You took the race lead shortly thereafter from Parker Bland. 2-tire call at the end, and you grabbed the win for the first time in about 3 or so races. How positive was this one given the circumstance of your season and just how strong of a car you had all night long?
Yeah, that was just a great race, a lot of fun. Great job to everybody. A lot of fun with Jaden there at the end. I didn't know if I was going to take 2 or 4. Kip kind of asked me maybe 3 or 4 laps before we pit, what do you think about taking? And I said I hadn't even really thought about it. So um, Jaden pit before me, and I guess Alex did too. And somebody in my Discord said Alex had a 9-second stop, and then Jaden had a 9-second stop. So I knew that they took 2, and just figured I had to match that. Just didn't know if I could take 4 and run down that whole gap with just the tires. I came in there, I missed my stall barely. It cost me some time, and then I forgot I was taking 2 tires, and so I didn't go right when they dropped the jack on the right side. So I kind of hesitated there for a minute. So it was not very good execution on the stop, and came out, I think 4 seconds behind Jaden there, and was just thinking, man, that's a pretty hefty gap. And Alex he came out right with me, and so just figured to try to push him for a while and see if we could kind of chew into that gap in erase some of it right off the bat. And it seemed like that was working there for those first 5, 6, 7, 8 laps. We went from about 4 seconds to under 2 seconds, and then as soon as I felt like I needed to get around him, I did. And from then on, it was pushing hard to get to Jaden. That right front was going, and I was losing grip and getting tight, and so didn't have very much in the tank when I finally got into his slipstream there. So glad that all worked out, and those guys that made it on fuel, if we would have run maybe the normal 150 lap distance, I think that would have set up really nice for them. So just overall a great race and a lot of fun.
And with how things were in those first 2 stages, obviously typical of racing from Michigan, tight packs, very close action, hard to separate from each other. But how free was this final run here where you just got to step into a long green flag stretch? And while you guys thought about strategy, you got to think a little bit more about how this car was responding in clean or dirty air with a bit more elbow room to the guys around you.
Yeah, honestly, I felt a little bit more comfortable in dirty air, as crazy as it sounds, just because when you're out front, you're really you you have to push so hard just to match the pace of the guys that are drafting behind you. So you can really burn your tires off out front easily. So um, before we had the green flag stop there, I gave it my best to break away from Steven and Jaden, and I think like 7/10 in front of Steven at one point, and I think I'd separated myself and broken from him, but he and Jaden were able to just stay in a tandem and kind of draft back up to me before that stop, and that kind of my tires were really hot from trying to do that. So when we pit there, Jaden short pit me a couple laps, and sprinted on out there, and was pretty fortunate to be able to get that gap back. So
Well, nonetheless, it's win number 4 of the season, and thus far, you are still the only driver to have won more than one race in this 2025 campaign. You're going into the Final 4. Obviously, know that at this point, you are nothing but a lock into the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series playoffs. So what's this mindset through the Final 4 races before you guys go playoff racing?
yeah, looking forward to Pocono next week. I think that's where we're going, and that's just another one of my tracks that I really enjoy, and just think that it's so much fun, man. These wide tracks and the next gen car just race really well. And like you hear Denny Hamlin talk about on his podcast, any track that the track is just wider and you're able to escape the dirty air and the wake, it just puts on great racing. So um you know Pocono in the corners, it can kind of narrow, especially in that tunnel turn, but still a big wide track. We'll race a lot like it raced here tonight. So looking forward to that, and just try to keep the momentum. And you know it's not really any secret formula, just try to stay out of trouble, and just keep executing and doing well. Definitely, learning some things like making that mistake in the green flag stop there. You got to just clean that up come playoff time. So just keep working towards that, and consistency and in good races.
Still looking to improve, but you've been a contender in basically every single race. You've won 40% of the first 10, so I'm sure that's a very good sign. Lawson, on behalf of all of us here at the KBueno Racing Network, congratulations on the Michigan W. But before we let you bounce, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or thank for tonight's run?
Yeah, thanks to the KBueno Racing Network. Thanks to Stimpy and Progar, Kunkel, everybody that runs things behind the scenes here at DTH. And yeah, just appreciate all the competitors and everybody that raced tonight and enjoyed the battle there with Jaden. Hats off to him. Just really had a lot of good battles with him lately. So I just enjoy it, and I appreciate him always, racing me clean and respectful, but we can go at it hard and have fun at the same time. So it's a lot of fun. Appreciate that. And Paul set up shop, all my Drinking Bros teammates, and I think I didn't miss anybody. So
well, Lawson, thank you so much for the time. Congratulations on this win from the Irish Hills of Michigan, and we'll see you in the rest of the field come racing at Pocono Raceway next week. Congrats on the dub.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. I appreciate it.
Lawson Peel takes win number 4 of the season. Right behind him is the man who has an average finish of 1.5 after tonight in 2 races. Jaden Porter joins Francisco Bacalhau after a second place running.
A really solid night from you, Jaden, in your second start of the season. You're able to lead some more laps and have a good run, a good chance at the race win. What more did you need to try and beat the number 9 machine tonight?
Probably take care of my tires a little better early in the run. I was trying to even out lap time even when they were in the draft, and I probably should have just backed it down knowing they were going to be faster in draft. It may be taking a little bit more fuel on the pit stop. I was really tight at the end of the run. I didn't put much fuel in the car, and probably could have put a little bit more in knowing I had a 3-second lead, but I don't know much more I could have done. I probably not have that internet issue that I was having towards the end of the second stage. Sent me back to like last place beginning of third stage, and I was able to drive my way back up to the front. Just had to try a short pit to try to win, and it just wasn't enough.
But it's still been a really good, solid effort from you in these 2 races. We move over to the Pocono Raceway, where you found some success recently with this race car. So when you go to Pocono, as you try to build a consistent close to this season, I don't believe that you'll be listed as playoff eligible. But for your goal this season, what are you going to try to do to Pocono in the next race?
Well, unfortunately, I won't be at Pocono because I'll be at Talladega that week. So I'm not going to be able to make it to Pocono. But just for the rest of the season, keep trying to win races. That's the goal. Just I don't think there's any chance of me making the playoffs, especially if I miss next week, but or in 2 weeks. But yeah, just keep trying to win races. Kind of the same mentality I had the first season I joined for a while. I just try to win as many races as you can and build a good reputation with everybody.
Well, that's unfortunate you won't join us for Pocono, but you'll be back at Nashville. It's a concrete racetrack. We've seen you have some success there in the past, so hopefully when you join us at Nashville, you'll continue to have some good runs. But Jaden, it's been another good run. You have another one coming up on Wednesday night at a similar racetrack to this one in 4 wide. I know it's not that league this time around, but how do you feel about your chances come playoff time starting this week?
So Jaden Porter ends up as second place here from the virtual Michigan International Speedway. A fantastic run. I don't even know if we got the back end of things from Jaden there.
I was left confused. I don't know if I was able to be heard or not there at the end.
Well, I could hear you just fine, so I'm not sure if Porter just could not hear it then. But we'll turn over to third place. That is Cedric Hunter, driver in the number 45. And Cedric, this bounce back was unbelievable. Started 14th in this race. You put yourself in contention midway through and several times throughout the race. And then all of a sudden you pick up some front end damage. You lose track position, but you never gave up in this fight. How relentless were you over the course of tonight's race? And how rewarding is third after it all?
It feels pretty good. I feel like that's kind of my MO this season is, by spinning out tonight, I continue my streak of spinning out in every single race so far this season or being wrecked out. So bouncing back obviously feels good. I've had it happen a couple times this season so far, but felt really good about my pace tonight. Felt like if we can go obviously really long, that I probably had one of the best cars out there even after the damage, and and I just got the strategy call obviously wrong with that last pit stop there. I played the safe route with just taking 4, and the entire time I was thinking like, oh, should I take 2? And I talked myself out of it. I think with like 2 or 3 laps to go before pitting, and boy, I wish I wouldn't have. Because obviously those guys, I'm pretty sure took 2 tires. They gapped me on pit road, and I could just never get it back. And unfortunately, I guess the way that kind of iRacing works right now is 2 tires is supreme, and I don't know. I'm just used to, I guess it's rarely working, as in like way back in the day, and I could never wrap my head around, having a 25 to 30 lap run to the finish and still and still going the 2 tire route. But it backfired. But it is what it is.
And with things going out the way they were, I mean, it seemed like Michigan, between that and Auto Club from earlier this year, it was the same Hunter supremacy in certain cases, and with very, very good pace over the course of a short run, medium run, or a long run. What kind of notes perhaps did you learn from Auto Club that maybe could have been in use tonight, or did it seem like a different ballgame for you?
It's kind of a different ball game. For the most part, like the bottom line at Auto Club worked really well, and tonight it was tough. Like it was really hard to make passes on the bottom, and that was kind of where I made a lot of my passes. A couple months ago at Auto Club, and I don't know. You have to drive it a little bit differently, and I mean, there are 2 different tracks, I guess, with different corners and everything, but. Overall, I guess the speed kind of translated over, which is nice. And I just have to be, I think, a lot more aggressive going into these races. Like, I don't know, like I'm thinking Vegas won both stages, was really passive during those runs, and kind of took care of my tires, and it eventually came back to me. And I've kind of been trying to do the same thing. So Auto Club, I was super aggressive, and obviously that kind of worked too. And I took the more passive route over the last month or 2, and it really hasn't worked out. I just kind of end up being always kind of where the wreck is around, so it's really backfired. For tonight, I think I just had a different mindset where it's, hey, I have to just be a little more aggressive. Obviously passing is really hard, but I just have to be there, I guess, or be away from the wrecks. And I mean, the couple of wrecks that happened, I guess even tonight, was all where they were all pretty much behind me, where if I would have been a little more passive, then I would have been caught up in it. So I think a shift of mindset going to the playoffs is kind of where we're at on the 45, and hopefully it pays off, and we can get a win before the playoffs.
And you've got some 3 difficult tracks to race. Pocono, Nashville, and Gateway are going to be a driver's discipline segment of the regular season before we get into Daytona for some of the regular season ending and the playoffs come at Charlotte in early June. Cedric, before we let you go, hear from Michigan International Speedway on the 3rd place finish. Anybody that you want to thank for tonight's finish?
Absolutely. I want to give you guys, first of all, a huge shout out. You guys always do a fantastic job. Can't wait to go back and watch this broadcasting again tomorrow. Shout out to the admins that set this whole thing up, the drivers for coming out and racing. Obviously my teammates, Zach and Robert. Zach couldn't make it, unfortunately, tonight, but he's always really strong. Pretty much everywhere he goes. So I'm sure if he would have showed up, he would have been up there with me. Robert had a really, really good run. Unfortunately, kind of just a couple mistakes on pit road ruined that for him, but solid run, around the top 10 for up until that point. So that's great for him. And thank you to all the fans for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed the race, and hopefully we get to see you guys at Victory Lane next week at Pocono.
Well, Cedric, we certainly appreciate the time as always. Anytime that we get to talk to you, congrats on the podium finish. Good things looking ahead for Pocono, Nashville, and Gateway. Should be a very fun stint. Congrats on the 3rd place again, and we'll see you at Pocono next week.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Have a good night.
That is Cedric Hunter in the 45, driving it to a 3rd place finish on the 4-tire call that got him on the proverbial 3rd place ending to the checkered flag tonight. It all came down to strategy here in these final laps in Michigan, similar to what we saw at Auto Club Speedway not that long ago. And from here, we move. We head to one of the harder tracks to drive on the schedule, and we open it up further, 2.5 miles to the tricky triangle over in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. Pocono Raceway comes your way next week on April 27th. I believe we are going to take a week off, as a matter of fact. So April 20th, you won't find any coverage of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, but we will return on April 27th. That is April 27th at 8:10 p.m. Eastern for the coverage live on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. But you won't want to miss what we've got going on in May. The 3 races until the playoffs following Pocono in Nashville, Gateway, and then the old super speedway that kicked us all off, the Daytona International Speedway. That'll come your way on May 18th before we go playoff racing a couple of weeks later to kick off June at the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. So all in all, a great race here from the virtual Michigan International Speedway. We extended it over a tribute to our great friend Dave Bush, a great friend of Steven Stempien, who passed away lately. And of course, we send our thoughts and love to the Bush family and to Steven Stempien as they came around. And to everyone who raced tonight, a big thank you to commemorate a great friend of this Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, as Lawson Peel is able to steal the one at the end to get his 4th career Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series win. So on behalf of everyone that makes it happen here at the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Byer, Keelan Belsher, Francisco Bacalao, I'm Kenneth Bueno, saying goodnight from virtual Michigan. Congratulations to Lawson Peel on his 4th win of the 2025 season. Can he make it 5? We'll just find out in a couple of weeks' time. To Pocono, April 27th. We'll see you then.